The Planning and Land Use Management Committee. I'm Councilmember Weezar, been joined by Councilmember Marquise Harris Dawson, Councilmember Englander, and also our newest member, Bob Blumenfield. We will go to multiple item comment. We have none. So we would move to item number 2. There is no cards. We will approve that on consent without objection. Item 2. I think I have to, do we have the correct language on that?
Yes.
Do we have to read that into the record? Okay, so we move to initiate a general plan amendment from commercial manufacturing low medium to residential to community commercial, and an amendment to footnote number 4 of the South LA Community Plan's land use map to allow height district 2 and zone height district changes from QC2-1 to C2-2 with respect to various parcels located at 2268 West Pico Boulevard on the south side of Pico between Arapahoe Street and Magnolia Avenue and Arapahoe Street south of Pico Boulevard. We further move the Department of City Planning prepare a general plan amendment to the South LA Community Plan land use map and zone and height district change ordinance, including the preparation and adoption, any required resolution ordinance, and refer the GPA to Los Angeles City Planning Commission and Mayor. Without any objection, we'll approve that item 2. Moving to item number 5, we'll approve HCM for Chateau Chamont located at 855 South Serrano. Item number 6, approve on consent HCM for the Commercial Exchange Building located at 416-436 West 8th Street. And those are consent items. And now we will move to our action items. Item number 1 is a report from the Director of Planning, Mr. Vince Spertoni. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair Weezar and members of the Planning and Land Use Management Committee. As I mentioned in the past, we've been having the Planning 101 trainings throughout the city. We've scheduled 6 of them. We've already had 3 that have occurred, one in South Los Angeles, one in Harbor, and one in East Los Angeles. And those are intended for people in our communities who may be not very familiar at all with city planning, and we want to start to introduce and really cultivate a better understanding of what city planning does so we can have more of our citizens engaged. The whole purpose is to engage more people and more Angelinos in the planning process. So we've conducted 3 of them, and we've been getting a mixture of people who've been both involved in the process in the past and those who haven't, they're brand new to it. We have one that is going to be tonight, which will be for Central Los Angeles, and that will be in City Hall, and we've had over 100 RSVPs so far, so we're very excited about that. So we're excited to be moving forward with this program. So after this, we have just West Los Angeles and the Valley. We plan on doing more of these in the future, and we encourage everyone to attend. And with that concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you very much. Any questions? No questions? We will, yes.
Did a great Planning 101 in my district, and a lot of folks came out and really enjoyed it, and so thank you for that.
Thank you. So we will receive and file item number 1. Moving on to item number 4, if we could read that into the record, please.
Item number 4 is the inclusion of the orange Julius located at 6001 West Pico Boulevard on the list of historic cultural monuments.
Yes, good afternoon, council members. Ken Bernstein with the Department of City Planning and Office of Historic Resources. This is the Historic Cultural Monument application for the Orange Julius property, 6001 West Pico. The Cultural Heritage Commission unanimously recommended approval of the designation, finding that it met 2 of the required Cultural Heritage Ordinance findings. First, that it reflects the broad cultural, economic, or social history of the nation, state, or community as the only remaining intact walk-up food stand associated with the Orange Julius Company founded in Los Angeles, and in addition, as an excellent example of a 1960s walk-up food stand, the building was designed by the firm of Arme and Davis, which was notable for Googie-style architecture in Los Angeles, including the Johnny's Coffee Shop building at Wilshire and Fairfax, as well as the Norm's La Cienega Coffee Shop. This historic cultural monument application had been initiated by the City Council through a motion by Councilmember Paul Koretz.
Thank you. So we will first hear from the applicant, Andrew Fogg, 5 minutes.
I apologize, Councilmember Huizar. We're actually the property owner. We're opposed to the nomination. I don't know if you want us to go now. Okay.
Go right ahead. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, council members. Andrew Fogg from the law offices of Cox, Castle, and Nicholson. We are representing the property owner, and we are respectfully asking that the property not be designated as a historic monument and not included on the city's list. This is a site that is approved for a 48-unit affordable by right mixed-use development. It's in a TOD area. It's a major corridor. It'll include 5 units of very low-income housing. The affordability covenant is already done and approved by the housing department. And it's important to note that this mixed use was always intended to include a restaurant use. And in fact, prior to this nomination being introduced by Councilmember Koretz, the ownership had already engaged with the existing operator, and they've entered into a letter of intent for him to come back and operate the commercial space that is supposed to be in the new building. So the question is, what is significant about this building? The building has a folded plate roof in the Googie style, has a pole sign, and a front facade with the walk-up windows. The balance of the building is outdated CMU block. It's been substantially modified. The former covered patio in the rear has been removed and enclosed. So there's also significant methane, and there was a dry cleaner across the street that had contamination that flowed underneath the property. There's been a remedial action plan that's been approved. So whatever happens with this building, the building has to be removed from the site, and then whatever is to remain will be put back. The question is, do you build around it or do you preserve some elements? And we have redesigned the project to preserve the significant elements. These include the folded plate roof, the sign, and the front facade. They would be incorporated into the building as part of the new commercial space. They would be oriented slightly differently, and we recognize that. The front of the building would be farther back from the edge of the folded plate roof, but this creates the covered patio that was lost originally. So what we are asking is to allow this project to go forward with these modifications. We're happy to give a covenant to the city in order to preserve these elements, but we do not believe that it meets the significance criteria. There are other examples of walk-up stands, and this stand actually, ironically, with this new building, will have a new kitchen, a commercial kitchen that's up to health code. The existing improvements are outdated, don't work well, and are very challenging to keep up to health standards. The new kitchen will be a new commercial kitchen, and we're working with the existing operator to maintain that. So the elements that have been highlighted by the staff in the report will be preserved, but we don't believe that it's appropriate to do that in the context of a designated monument. This allows the building flexibility to preserve the existing historic use. It allows the building to move forward in a modern way that plays homage to the Googie-style architecture that is there. The building's been redesigned to incorporate that. But to include this in the additional rigors where it's a by right project with significant affordable units on a major corridor in a transit area, we believe gets in the way and is inappropriate. Also, building around the building would require modification of the building design, which would have an impact on the affordability covenant. That would have to be redone, and that could result in the loss of square footage for those affordable units. So it would have a net impact on the affordability that's being done today. So with that, the owner is here as well. He put in a card. He'd be happy to speak. We're happy to answer questions, and we do have examples of what the modified building would look like. But we believe the better course is to deliver the housing as soon as possible and allow this to move forward outside the confines of a historic nominated property. And I thank you for your time.
Great, thank you.
My name is Matt Nelson. I'm the owner of the property. I just wanted to revisit some of what Andrew touched on regarding working with Gustavo Munoz, the current operator. He's on vacation now, I believe. I tried to reach out to him and have him attend. But we have been meeting with several designers and a business by the name of Chef's Toys to discuss layout and equipment specifications. And I've offered to help them financially to meet the gap, if there is, to bring up the equipment to current operating standards. And one thing I also want to tell you is that I did engage Armet Davis, Victor Newlove, who's the operating member of that architectural firm, and he was involved in some of the redesigns that we did to incorporate that.
Great, thank you very much. Marie-Louise Morgan. Shelley Morrison Dominguez. And Walter Dominguez. A minute each.
I shall be very brief.
Thank you.
Can you hear me? Does that work?
Yes.
I'm here today to support the designation of a historical monument to the hamburger stand, formerly the Orange Julius stand. But I understand there's been a great deal of difficulty in finding a place to relocate this at this building, and it must be, if it's to be preserved, it must be moved and relocated. And so I withdraw my support for relocation and designation, and would accept the incorporation of this building into the property at Stearns and Pico Boulevard. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Shelley Morrison Dominguez. And then Walter Dominguez.
¿Qué tal?
Hello.
¿Está bueno?
Todo bien.
I just don't like to see things being erased. I probably have socks older than you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You can pay me later, Jose. And to see places that I've been living in the same neighborhood since 1946 in South Carthage. And that place meant a lot to us. It still means a lot to us. And I just would like to see it being treated with more reverence. And just don't erase us all. Thank you.
Walter Dominguez, and then Faisal Alseri from Council District 5.
Good afternoon. Thank you. My name is Walter Dominguez. I'm part of the South Carthage Neighborhood Association, which is just half a block over, and from this proposed development. And I support the historic monument designation for the stand. There's so few of them left, and it's such an iconic part of Los Angeles culture and history. So that's my statement. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Faisal from Council District 5.
Council members, good afternoon. Faisal Alseri on behalf of Councilmember Paul Koretz. We'd like to thank the applicant, the department, the CHC for working through this process to come up with the best possible outcome. Ultimately, after several months of good faith negotiations, it's clear that the best option for the city would be to save the physical, historical elements of the site while maintaining the historic use of the property, which is a fully operating restaurant. It has been kind of a fixture in the community to be able to walk right up, order a burger, and then walk right out on a busy boulevard in the city, Pico Boulevard. Unfortunately, the historical designation process has not always yielded this result in the past. We have a case example, the Fat Burger site, where the city designated the building and kind of just the physical portion a historical monument, and that structure has now become a non-restaurant space that's a community/storage space at a historic site of what many seem to call kind of a sad design behind it. The best option with this site and the LA Burger Shack going forward is to not designate this building a historical monument and to work with the property owner to designate the historical elements, primarily the roof and the signage, The owner has agreed voluntarily to record a covenant on the property, ensuring that these elements remain, as well as the restaurant use. In doing so, the city is guaranteeing the most amount of affordable housing units, a functioning restaurant, which is going to be up to health standards, including the walk-up counter, which is so unique to that era, as well as the original roof and the original signage. The option will also celebrate the Orange Julius name in somewhat of a quirky design, but it will be bright and colorful, and it will become a revamped modern landmark and an icon in the area. The benefits of this option are clear, and we urge you to not designate this location at this time. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So you guys initiated the CD5 initiated designation, but now are asking us to deny it. And you worked something out with the owner to possibly get a covenant to preserve some components of the bill. Is that accurate? Does that summarize everything?
Correct. So basically, if the city were to just designate this a historical monument, the city cannot guarantee that the restaurant will continue operating. And in the past, when the city has done actually a very similar example with the Fatburger site, it turned out that the Fatburger site became a storage space. And then so you had like the small original Fatburger, and then you had the big new building right behind it. It really didn't make much sense in this example with the owner coming forward and saying, hey, I'm going to continue to operate this restaurant. I'm going to improve the kind of health code standards here. Actually, the current operator that's been there for many, many years is going to continue to come back and is kind of a well-known person in the community. So we feel that this is a much better outcome for the city than the historical designation process.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Terry Kaufman, Macias City Attorney's Office. So that's important information, but what's in front of the committee today is just whether or not this building meets the criteria for a monument, which is included in the report.
Okay, and does it make a difference procedurally if the applicant withdraws the application versus the committee denying the HCM's nomination?
Well, I don't think the applicant spoke on this.
Or
today.
is it CD5 or the city that was the applicant?
The city council, in fact, technically is the
Through
applicant.
motion.
The Councilmember Koretz introduced the motion, the full city council formally initiated. So it is a city-initiated nomination.
Yeah, so if the committee's not interested and doesn't think that this meets the requirement, then it should just disapprove.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you. Okay, any questions or comments? Having heard from the initiator of the motion that they are currently working to come up with a means to preserve some of the elements at that location, they're suggesting that we deny the HCM nomination, so we'll move to deny it. Any objection? Seeing none, so ordered. Thank you. Okay, item 3.
Item 3 is continued consideration of the comprehensive fee study, which was prepared by the Planning Department and the City Administrative Officer.
Thank you. We heard this item last week. We had some questions with respect to some fees which were climbing more than 50%. We wanted additional justification for that. We also raised some issues about appeals, and Mr. Englander brought up some issues there. So anything to report on and I understand you released a report back yesterday, so that should be available as well. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Jason Klein, Office of the City Administrative Officer. As you stated, we released a joint report yesterday, which outlined 4 additional options for the appeals fees. It also included a hardship exemption. We also addressed the fees and provided a list of fees that would be increasing by more than 50%. Overall, approximately 34 of planning's recommended fees would increase by more than 50%, and 39 of the CAO's recommended fees would increase by more than 50%. There's only a difference of 6 fees where the department and the CAO's office are actually recommending different fees. The 5 fees that are in conflict are the appeals fee, and then 4 fees that are associated with design review board fees for single-family homes. In general, the last fee study was conducted in 2008 and was adopted in 2009. Since that date, wages have gone up by 74%. Through the development reform, efficiencies, and refining various methodologies, the city has been successful in mitigating the majority of the impact for those salary increases. Overall, 80 fees are actually decreasing, which represents 42% of the fees included in the report. 5% or 11 fees are remaining the same. 45 fees are increasing by less than the wages, or 24% of the department's fees, and only 55 of the 191 fees are increasing by more than the wages. As identified in the report, we have outdated land use documents. We have aging general plan elements. We have aging community plans, some of which are over 20 years in age. We have a 1945 zoning code. So as the state has adopted new legislation that has made environmental review more complex, as development projects have become more complex, we're reliant on outdated land use documents, which increases case processing time and the amount of time that staff's been reviewing it. So outside of the wages, the biggest change that we haven't been able to address through the efficiencies in the development reform have just been changes that we hope to address by updating our zoning code, by updating the community plans. As we discussed in the report, the impact of not approving the fee study is approximately $8.5 million, of which the biggest piece is the $3.8 million in general fund subsidy for the appeals. The impact of not approving a fee study is effectively the department would have to hold 60 positions vacant. 30 of those positions are on the case processing side, and those would be positions that would actually be fully supported by increasing fees for all other areas outside of appeals. And then 30 long-range planning positions, which includes at least one of the geographic teams for the community planning program, would have to be held vacant because the general fund subsidy that was being redirected from our case processing fees was intended to fund those positions. So outside of a general fund appropriation, the department would not be able to meet its commitment to update all the community plans by 2024. If you have any questions, staff from the CEO's office as well as the City Planning Department are on hand to answer questions.
First, with respect to the non-subsidized fees that are going up over 50%, staffing and processing costs aside, how was it determined that these fees should or should not be subsidized? If you could just repeat that again, please.
Sure. Back in 2009, the council made a policy decision to subsidize the single-family homes. All other fees other than appeals and HPOZ were intended to be at full cost recovery. So any of the fees that are not the 5 fees that the CO's office and the department disagree on, it's just the cost to go to full cost recovery, which is effectively the increase in the complexity and the time spent on the cases and the wage increases.
So under the Commissioner Director's determinations in Section 19.01J, why were only a few of these fees recommended to be subsidized and not others? Why were those singled out?
The fees that are actually recommended for subsidy were the fields where a prior policy decision was made to subsidize those fees. So we only carried forward the subsidy for fees in which the council had already taken an action to subsidize.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Also, Mr. Englander had some questions regarding the appeal fees, and Mr. Englander, do you want to follow up on anything there?
Thank you. So one of the things in looking back in not only the conversation on this, but even further back on some of the financial policies, because I was part of that in the rewrite during the structure of our new financial policies that were updated some years ago, where the idea and concept behind it was to eliminate across the board for all departments subsidies, if you will, and have full cost recovery for actual work, and which we've been doing. In fact, this very committee spent years looking at the special event fee subsidy and trying to craft very delicate, hard-written language that worked well with the community and the stakeholders to make sure that we continue to have citywide events. And the most critical things in our communities, things like parades, which are so important for so many reasons. But without going into all of that, we actually took the time and crafted something that made sense to fit in the financial policy framework that the council had approved. With that, this is one of the big areas that out there that we haven't quite tackled. And one of the things we've seen grow since the financial policies are not only the number of appeals, in fact, just in the last 3 years have doubled to a cost of around $4 million in subsidies. What's changed a lot beyond that is not just the quantity, but as you mentioned earlier, the wages, the complexities of these, and the time. And so our cost has gone up dramatically. In a lot of the areas that I look at, and what does that mean for a subsidy, the things that we're struggling with today are core functions and services in dealing with trying to eradicate homelessness and drug addiction, mental health issues, making sure our parks and facilities are maintained and clean. Those are all general fund, for the most part, issues that anytime we take away, but there's got to be a balance. I've heard from when I made some of the last statements last week, many people, including many of my neighborhood councils and others, have come out and said it wouldn't be fair to charge an appellant because they can't necessarily afford it, or they shouldn't have to pay it because it's the applicant who stands or withstands to make a profit, and it's their project. And but what we've seen because of, and I did a deeper dive on this, and because of the number of appeals, a lot of them are coming in from people that are way outside, not only the local area, not all, but many are coming from way outside the local area, even outside the city. And we're subsidizing those too. And so I had asked, and I appreciate the committee doing a deeper dive on this because it is complex, the planning department to come together with some options, to look at what is in the space, what are other municipalities doing, what do we think would be fair here. We are unique, just in sheer size and scope, and the fact that we have neighborhood councils, which is also unique. Most of these areas do not. And the interesting thing with neighborhood councils, and I think almost every city council member now, I don't think there's an exception, every single city council member in LA, and this did not exist when neighborhood councils were formed or at the beginning of this process, send all land use development issues to the neighborhood councils first. In fact, I believe every neighborhood council in the city of LA now has a planning committee on top of their standing committee. So not only does that create another layer of protection on that local community and create the dialogue that didn't exist prior, but another opportunity early on for folks to weigh in. In addition, I asked the planning department to come back and look at, well, let's assume full cost recovery on both sides, both the applicant and the appellant. What would that space look like? And that may be too extreme. And with that, knowing that we've got to get to full cost recovery, I want to thank the planning department, and general manager and all staff that came back with a comprehensive review in a very short amount of time, and with options. And that's what we wanted to explore, were some options that were fair and reasonable, and make sure that our community still has a voice without certainly many of those outside of our community taking advantage of a process for so many different reasons. And so I think this is a discussion we should have in exploring some of these options. since we've just received this recently, I don't know that there's been a lot of time to digest it and have meetings and get some input. Option 1, for example, is sort of a status quo with bringing up the cost based on the fee schedule. So that would be $13,538 for the applicant and $271 for the appellant, if you will, or the non-applicant. Still raising those costs based on the fee schedule from what I believe today is about $89. Is that correct? Also, I've heard from some people that the $271 is too high. And in some areas, that may be right. And without reading through all of these options, we get all the way down to option 5, which I thought was the most interesting and creative. And it's also a comparison of what's done with other municipalities. And that is sort of an area where you would have the applicant still pay full cost at $13,500, but then the appellant, based on if they lived within a 500-foot radius. So now you've got some skin in the game. Now you are a stakeholder locally or somebody who is directly affected or going to benefit or impact from that project, from that applicant. And not very difficult to find people with that interest level. We also have, once not in here, that's that we have to talk about every time, is a 245 option. We are a charter city, and we do have the ability under our charter to 245 an item and usurp authority and send something either back to CPC or to this body, given certain parameters. So we have a little more flexibility than perhaps some others. Some other cities like Pasadena has what's called, I think, a second look process. They don't call it a 245. So everyone does it a little differently, but we have that ability. We also have what was outlined in option 5 was some protections on residents with a 500-foot radius if they're on Lifeline or participating in DWP low-income discount programs, certain different formulas based on their need, if you will. So I'd call that, if I could just label that, hardship exemption or some kind of an exemption showing that they've got a financial need. That's where I think we could have the most discussion, is making sure that there's an opportunity for true stakeholders that are affected or impacted to be able to appeal a project based on the merit that they have standing, if you will. Although I'm not convinced, and I think it's worthy of a discussion for a deeper dive, that maybe we don't even need a lifeline there, if you will. Maybe we don't need a hardship exemption if they truly live within the 500-foot radius. Maybe that's just the subsidy. But I think it needs a deeper dive, much more discussion, and this is too big of an issue. And so, with the chair's permission, what I would ask is that that we pull this piece out on the fee schedule and move the rest of the fee schedule that the planning department has been waiting for, and in some cases lowering fees, in fact, to the full city council, so we can then have a discussion at a later date in the very near future to come up with not only the options the planning department has come up with, but maybe even some amendments to those and tweaks for discussion and get some community input on those and where they make sense. And so that's what I would ask.
Okay. Well, thank you. Any other questions or comments on this? Mr. Blumenfield?
Yeah, I'm intrigued by the appeals. The 500-foot radius makes a lot of sense. That's where we give notice. So having some sort of a lower threshold for that group, to me, makes a lot of sense. But I'm open to further discussions on how this looks. Curious, though, when you did the fee study, did you take into account the other fees and surcharges that are being considered, Quimby, linkage fee, those kinds of things? Was that part of it? And then on the flip side of that, well, let's start with that, I guess.
Yes, I mean, when you look at the fees, all of the mitigation impact fees, which Quimby and any other development fee would be based on the underlying application. So when we look at increasing the fees to full cost recovery, you look at the impact fees actually going up by the cost of living adjustments so that those fees effectively maintain whatever their level of funding is so that they can continue to fund things at the levels that they were intended to fund things at.
And then in terms of the subsidy that we're doing for appeals, does it, if we continued that subsidy, does that create a risk to the department's budget? What would be the maximum impact or risk to the budget if we were to continue that appeal fee and subsidy in its entirety?
The impact last fiscal year was effectively $3.8 million of the department's general fund appropriation, or 38%, went to actually subsidize appeal cases, which meant that was $3.8 million less for community planning, updating the general plan, updating the zoning code. And I mean, in dollars and cents for the fiscal year 2017-18 budget, that's the equivalent of one of the geographic teams. So it's 4 community plans not actually getting updated within 3 years, just because the general fund subsidy.
Say that again, because I want to make sure I'm understanding what you're saying. So you're saying just the subsidy alone on the appeals, if we continue to subsidize at the rate that we're doing, at the $3.8 million, that would cost us one of the community teams?
Correct.
I just state it so I understand it exactly.
The department has a fixed general fund appropriation.
Right.
This year it's $10 million. So if we maintain the general fund subsidy for appeals and the appeal level is the same as it was last year, that means $3.8 million of that appropriation has to go to pay for staff costs associated with those appeal cases, which means that instead of those monies being directed for the expanding community planning program, the 4th and 5th geographic teams would be at risk. At least one of those teams would not get funded and filled, which puts at risk the department's ability to update all the community plans by 2024. That is the direct impact in the absence of the department getting a $3.8 million appropriation in a financial status report to actually offset that subsidy.
Well, that definitely helps focus the impacts of what we're talking about. Another question, I like the idea of a different fee for the applicant versus the appellant. Are there any legal challenges with making that kind of discrimination? Maybe this should be a question for the city attorney, if it's something that can be answered in open session. Are there any legal risks with discriminating fees on different categories of people?
Let me put it this way, Terry Kaufman, Macias City Attorney's Office. You have to have a rational basis for whatever categories you make and whatever distinctions you make.
So a rational basis could be as much as these are impacted community members who may have less access to capital to be able to appeal something. Would that?
I don't know that I could answer it off the cuff, but that's the standard. There could be a variety of factors that would go into that to support making that distinction.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? 2 of the increases are for areas that we're simply seeking compliance. So, for example, in the for project permit compliance and design review board standard single family, I think they're increasing by 57% and 47%. How much would the impact to the budget be if we had a more reasoned, how much would it be? We've only had a couple of cases for those, correct?
I believe you have a couple of cases of Shauna Bonson, Principal City Planner.
Pardon me?
Shauna Bonson, Principal City Planner. You have a couple cases under that type for the time frame in which that was looked at. And your question is the 56%, why that differs from the 50%?
Mm-hmm.
And that was for a DRB with a project permit compliance. So the process for that involves a little bit more time because of the design review board. So project permit compliance is in areas that have specific plans. So these are geographic areas that require any project to go forward and have a review that checks against basically a specific plan is a special ordinance with regulations. And these also have design review boards, which are locally appointed boards that review the project, sometimes a number of times.
Okay, great, thank you.
And then to follow up on the fiscal impact, the subsidy for those fees is in the low tens of thousands of dollars. Is it something that the department has historically absorbed within its normal vacancy rate for case processing?
Yeah, and that's where my concern lies, because although the impact would be minimal to the department, we're asking for compliance in neighborhoods, and we want to make it easy for single-family homeowners to engage in complying with design review and overlays. So it'd be much more of a hit for somebody living in a single-family home that wants to just make sure that there's compliance happening with overlays and reviews. So I have a suggestion for that those be limited to a 20% increase as opposed to a 212% and a 185% increase. So we'll make that suggestion on our recommendations. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Yes, Mr. Bloomfield?
One other question I'd like to ask. In the appeals issue, and maybe we're taking that separately, but the environmental appeals are being called out as having a different subsidy than the regular land use appeals. I wanted to, if you could explain the rationale for segmenting environmental appeals versus other appeals.
Good afternoon, Lucy Ibarra with the Planning Department. The CEQA appeals are a little bit more nuanced than the land use appeals. They require a level of sophistication to analyze both the technical aspects of the analysis that's done for a project and also any administrative record claims in terms of the department's deliberations on the reason we made a determination on a particular CEQA document. As I always say, that CEQAs are probably our first line of defense when considering a project with potential litigation, and so it comes with a level of sophistication that's warranted in the increase.
So it's about the costs on our end as opposed to the rationale for subsidizing the appellant's end.
Correct.
Okay, because that I guess is something to think about in terms of maybe the percentages should be more similar, but the numbers would be different because it's a more expensive appeal.
The environmental appeals do require more experienced staff, and the impact of that is every hour that those staff actually spend working on that appeal case is time that they're not actually, spending on incoming cases, which creates additional backlogs and makes the department less efficient. So to the extent that we're able to cover those costs and the amount of time that it goes in, it gives the department the operational ability to either ask for additional resources to maintain cycle times at our goals, or to get an increased appropriation for overtime expenditures to basically ensure that the workload on the back end and the new incoming workload isn't impacted.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Mr. Englander?
Thank you. Thanks for bringing that up, because I wasn't sure if the CEQA subsidy was part of the proposed memo that was submitted, or if that's a separate item.
All appeal cases are actually included. In the options 4 and options 5, right, we make the recommendation that the applicant and the non-applicant, when filing appeals, would pay full cost recovery on any case that involved an environmental appeal.
Okay, so it didn't differentiate between what kind of appeal, whether it's environmental or otherwise. You have it all included.
It does differentiate between
in the memo.
Yes,
but we would still be able to. Okay, so that would be. I just wanted for clarity. I would be asking, then we pull that part out of the fee study. So I just wanted to make sure that was included. And since you highlighted that, okay. Thank you very much for that.
Mr. Blumenfield?
That's one more question. I know we have a lot on the agenda, but when you talk about the When you talk about the costs associated with the appeals, we're just talking about planning department costs, right? Are there other costs of the appeals that are borne by the city attorney costs, et cetera, that are not even captured in this discussion?
Yes, city attorney costs, the cost for the commissioners, the cost for general services staff, LAPD staff providing security at the commission meetings, depending on who the appellant body is, whether city clerk is present, CLA is present, all of those department or citywide overhead costs are not factored in as a direct cost. They're only included as part of just the general cap rate.
Right. And I'm not suggesting that those should be included, but I think it's important as we think about cost recovery to realize that we're not even, when we talk about full cost recovery, we're just talking about planning department cost recovery. The other costs are part of the cost of doing business, but they're also substantial, or could be substantial. I imagine the city attorney is probably the largest chunk of that, although I don't know. Has that ever been quantified, or is it just sort of, we know all these costs are part and parcel?
It's not something that we've quantified and put in a report before. I mean, effectively what we would look at is we would look at the staff time spent at various meetings in preparing the appeal case files, and then, working with the city attorney's office to determine whether or not there was a city attorney present at those meetings, as well as whether or not an attorney was assigned to work on those case files, and then we can kind of quantify what the actual impact of their involvement would be.
Great, thank you. Just important to understand. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. We will now turn to public comment on this item. Mr. Englander has proposed that we move the report forward with the exception of the appeals so that we could further study the proposals and options by the planning department. I'm willing to entertain that. Let's first hear from public comment. We will come back with that in 2 weeks. We don't want to wait too long, but I think it's worthwhile for us to further examine what the different options may be. But for now, we'll go to public comment. George Abrams and Dr. Tom Williams, Marion Dodge, a minute each.
California, is this working?
Yes, you got to speak into it, right into it.
Okay. California Constitution protects the right to due process in acquiring, possessing, and protecting property. In California Teachers Association versus the State of California, the California Supreme Court, in a case regarding teacher to pay 1/2 the cost of administrative law judge, said, we agree with the trial court and court of appeal that the cost provision is unconstitutional. The imposition upon such teacher of the open-ended cost of adjudicator conflicts with the centuries-old common law tradition that the salaries of judges are to be borne by the state and not the litigants. Accordingly, the Court of Appeals held that the cost provision placed too great of a burden upon the exercise of the right to due process. The court also concluded the state has no legitimate interest in denying a teacher a meaningful opportunity to be heard before termination, no matter how meritless the teacher's defense may prove to be. And if you want to really save money, don't approve illegal projects.
Thank you. Dr. Tom Williams.
Dr. Tom Williams, LA 32 Neighborhood Council Land Use Committee, and separate the appeals out. Basic. If I'm the applicant, I get to deduct 100% of all my expenses. If I'm a neighbor, I don't deduct anything from my taxable income. So at least provide for 501c3, maybe 501c4s to have waivers, exemptions, subsidies, whatever you want. Because why are we doing this? To make a better product, to make a better project, to get people in the community to participate in the development of their community and perhaps make it better. Even the Rand Corporation said, talk to the community and you'll find that the political risks will be reduced and you'll have a better product at the end. Thank you.
Marion Dodge, Doug Haynes, Damian Goodman, and Sylvie Shane. Welcome.
Good afternoon. I'm Marion Dodge. Increasing appeal fees is a draconian solution for a problem that is actually simple to solve without increasing any fee. The easiest way to reduce the costs of processing appeals is to reduce the number of appeals filed. This, too, is easy to accomplish. All the city has to do is to stop granting variances and exceptions to code that force people to file appeals. When the city allows an applicant to build an over-in-height building or permits an applicant to excavate 10 times the amount of dirt allowed by code, of course people are going to appeal. It's their civic duty to do so in order to enforce the code. The planning department has worked hard to create zoning codes that are clear, balanced, fair, and compatible with the neighborhood and topography. If the city only followed its own rules and permitted no deviations from code, there would be very few appeals filed, if any, and the city would be spared the expense of processing appeals. I suggest the city make it. Thank you.
Thank you. Doug Haynes?
Good afternoon. My name is Doug Haynes. First off, entitlements set precedents beyond 500 feet. Environmental impacts are beyond 500 feet. You can't distinguish between one and the other when it comes to the cost of appeals. By charter, the area planning commissions are appellant bodies with fixed staffing costs, whether there's one appeal or 1,000. I don't buy the numbers then. The stated cost of $13,538 for an appeal is absurd. That's more than the stated cost of variances, CUPs, track maps, and a host of other entitlements that actually involve extensive staff analysis. Also, if 10 people separately file appeals, is the cost $140,000? I don't believe so. Appeals of this body are also often a small part of other entitlements that must come before you anyway. A zone change may involve a CUP appeal, a general plan amendment may involve appeal of the site plan. Where's the additional cost of $13,582? There isn't. You've agreed to incur hundreds of millions of dollars in debt to subsidize the Olympics. You need to subsidize appeals because that's what the government's for. Thank you.
Thank you. Damian Goodman?
I'm tired of people coming down here questioning my decisions, said one of your colleagues on Friday. What better statement to actually talk about how this council feels about the public? This is nothing but a poll tax, an attempt to prevent residents who are low income, those who can't afford to spend $13,000 or $6,000 or even $600 on appeal, from being heard by their democratically elected government, which is a requirement for them to be heard by the judges. This is shameful, and this should not be seen as anything but a direct attempt to prevent the voices of citizens from engaging in this process. What should the appeal fee be? $0. If you want to pass on the cost, pass it on to the developers who are asking for changes and violations of our city's planning code. I also point out there is nothing, this is a Brown Act violation, because there is nothing in this agenda that suggests that you are attempting to take away our right to appeal to you and to see the courts for justice.
Sylvie Shane, Nora Wyman, and Dale Kendall.
Hi, my name is Sylvie Shane. My firsthand experience of being evicted from my 50-unit rent-stabilized building for a hotel conversion project that was predicated upon a general plan amendment turned me into a rent-stabilized housing activist. I have since filed 2 appeals, both designed to preserve affordable RSO housing and both exposing major failures in the law. My appeal of the hotel conversion 1850 Cherokee, which came before you last year, brought awareness to a loophole in our code that allowed developers to skirt the payment of statutory relocation compensation. Consequently, the chair of this committee, Councilmember Huizar, co-authored a motion to amend the RSO and close that loophole. That is the power of the relationship between committed citizens and responsive legislators. Please do not make it harder for me to do the very thing our city council wants but struggles to do, protect our existing affordable housing. I do it at great personal cost, with my only compensation being the satisfaction of knowing that I have taken a devastating personal experience and turned it into public service.
Thank you. Nora Wyman?
Hi, my name is Nora Wyman. I currently have 2 separate CEQA appeals waiting to be heard because city planning approved projects without proper environmental clearance. Appeals are our only line of defense. Increasing our fees would make it almost impossible for us to file an appeal. This sounds to me like the city's attempting to shut us up while it pads its pockets with developer dollars. It shouldn't be my job to police the city and make sure environmental laws are followed, and I shouldn't have to pay thousands of dollars while I do it. Appeals require me to take time out of my working day. Who is going to reimburse me for my time? Because it's definitely not going to be developers, and it's definitely not going to be city planning. And I'd rather have my tax dollars go toward protecting my due process than parades. Thank you.
Thank you. Dale Kendall, Brian Jennings, Maureen Levinson.
Hi, Dale Kendall. I'm against charging $13,000 or anything for an appeal. It should be a small amount. If we're not here to watch city planning, who's going to watch them? It seems like nobody is watching them. They rubber stamp a lot of things that should not be approved. I've seen a lot of things go on in my neighborhood, which I disagree with, and the neighbors disagree with. But a lot of people don't have that kind of money to appeal something. It should be nominal. It shouldn't be the city's job to pay for mistakes that city planning may have done.
Thank you. Thank you. Brian Jennings, Maureen Levinson.
Yes, thank you so much. I just want to say I'm a stakeholder in the Fairfax district. Currently, we're trying to get an HPOZ for that area. And the way that this is, we're chasing our tails is that there's not enough staff to get this HPOZ through the system. And yet, while it's stuck in the system, there are developers who are not honoring the motion that Councilmember Koretz has put forth. And so we're spending all of our time doing appeals to try to retain the historic integrity of this neighborhood. So it's a catchphrase. We're really stuck in the middle. And I think by not allowing us and putting the cost on us on our appeals, the homeowners are just at a huge disadvantage, and we're going to lose our historic neighborhoods, and there will be nothing to save and protect and deem historic. So I am completely against this, and I hope that you will see the homeowner's point of view. Thank you.
Thank you. Maureen Levinson, Daniel Wright, Jennifer Getz. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Maureen Levinson of the Bel Air Association. I'm also on the Bel Air Beverly Crest Neighborhood Council. With or without tiers, undoubtedly, this fee restructuring is discriminatory to the haves and the have-nots. A question raised is if the appellant wins, does the appellee have to pay the fee? If the city is facing an onslaught of appeals, isn't that an indication that there's something wrong with the city permitting process? Appeals and litigation brings health to a broken process. An example, I'm on the hillside. Neighborhood council doesn't get hauling routes. One of the main issues we have are hauling routes. Categorical exemption today heard at the BBSC. And there's over 25 active construction sites on roads that are one way in and one way out in the hillside communities. The 300-foot radius, the 500-foot radius doesn't really apply to hillsides because we don't have city blocks to go around. It impacts one construction site impacts everybody on the road. So I want to bring that appeals help us with this.
Thank you. Daniel Wright, Jennifer Getz.
Good day, council members. Daniel Wright, 467 Crane Boulevard, Los Angeles. I do want to enter into the record the Brown Act violation of this vague agenda item did not give the public notice as to what you're doing today, and therefore on that ground alone you should postpone and put a proper notice to the public. Second of all, the attempt to raise these fees is inappropriate because there's been no outreach. It's my understanding that there's only been some outreach to a few favored development interests, and the department has not given any outreach to neighborhood councils or anything. All of this is coming to plumb. Under Charter Section 558, I believe that fees are related to the ability to exercise land use rights, and therefore you ought to be sending this back to the Planning Commission where it can be given a full airing with everyone participating, because this is a huge constitutional issue that you're about to get yourself stuck in a tar pit. Thank you.
Thank you. And City Attorney, I actually had that question earlier of my staff, is that why didn't this go to CPC?
Under Charter Section 558, fees are not the type of ordinance that goes to CPC. It's not covered under that section. We've looked at that and
Okay. All
it
right.
doesn't apply.
Thank you. Jennifer Getz, Miles, one second, Miles Griffiths or Gifts, Grits, and DeRay Harris. Welcome.
So the department said earlier about staff costs. First of all, the advisory agency who hears these appeals are appointed volunteers. The appeal process also requires the appellant to pay for 8 or 14 copies of the appeals. So what fees is it that you need to pay for to increase? And to address something Councilman Englander said earlier when you asked what changed in terms of the increase in the filing of appeals. What changed is the attack neighborhoods are suffering from non-complying projects, causing us to lose our homes, our open space, and natural environment. The solution is not to take advantage of the fact that these appeals are being filed left and right, but why are they being filed in the first place? The planning department has an appeal denial history of 99%. So 99% of appeals filed go denied. Yet appeals continue to get filed because we don't have another avenue in public participation. We don't want to go through the appeal process. We don't want to learn how to write one and spend time and make copies. But it's the only avenue we have to help ourselves as our human right, constitutional right, which are by right.
Okay, great. Thank you. Miles, and I couldn't make out the last name, DeRay Harris and Carol Citrone. Welcome.
Hello. My name is Miles Griffiths, Griffis.
Okay.
And I would like to say I went through an appeal process, but I wasn't even able to do it. I found the current fee far too high. I have to make rent. I have to live in this city. And our neighborhoods are changing over pretty rapidly. And even people who are trying to make their rent can't make an appeal. So you need to figure out a system that does not give developers environmental clearance, because it unfortunately takes away the voice of a lot of people. We're going to have a city without any trees in a very long time. Please focus on the other issues that are causing the appeals and not the appeals themselves.
Thank you. DeRay Harris.
Darcy Harris. I'm the co-chair of the Echo Park Neighborhood Council Land Use Committee, and I've seen a lot of projects. I've been an appellant myself, and I was just shocked to see the city's considering full cost recovery for appeals. I think, to do that would be completely un-American. Subsidizing the cost of providing a fair and impartial system of reviewing decisions that's accessible for all citizens is one of the primary duties of government. And when we're talking about cost recovery, when you file a case in court, your costs are subsidized. To file a case in LA Superior Court is about $450. No one is required to pay for the costs of the other side. Here, cost recovery you're talking about is the cost of the city, who's the adversary against the appellant, including increased levels of effort needed to build a defensible record. So you're really flipping the American system on its head when you start talking about the cost of the planning department defending their record against the person appealing. So that's a distinction between the cost of administering a neutral system. If I could just say, the other issue is on the environmental reviews. If you increase the cost to $13,000 on the CEQA reviews, what you're doing is that's an administrative prerequisite. So if you increase that, you're closing the courtroom doors. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Carol Citrone, David Modern, Brian Wootring, and Susan Hunter.
David Modern left. I'm Carol Citrone. I'm a 4-year member of the Silver Lake Land Use Committee. I've seen many projects, good and bad, come before our board. The city often makes mistakes. They err in their judgment and they overlook important aspects which are only apparent to immediate neighbors. The appeals process is an invaluable tool to gain a closer perspective on these projects. Our Constitution protects the people's right to file grievances and appeal decisions. It is our legal right to be allowed opportunities to publicly redress problematic projects. An increase in fees will impose hardship on most Angelenos and further the appearance of a system which is hostile to its citizens and influenced by developer money. The proposal to inflate the fees by this astronomical margin has the looks of an undemocratic power move. It's intended to subvert the democratic process and to silence the voice of our citizens. Please don't allow this to happen. Thank you.
Thank you. David Modern, Brian Wotring.
Brian Watchering, I'm a stakeholder in Sherman Oaks and Echo Park. I just wanted to say that the appeals process has been of great service to those areas and neighborhoods. To take that democratic tool away at this time as we're poised for a wave of gentrification from East LA to South LA seems really egregious and just not the right time to be taking that democratic tool away from that community. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Susan Hunter, Mickey Jackson.
Hi, Susan Hunter. Firstly, this council needs to adopt all comments that are opposing on file. Secondly, you have failed to look at two other alternatives. One, the fact that all appeals have increased under the time that Vince Bertoni has been the head of planning, so he should be fired. Secondly, if you didn't break the law in the first place, we wouldn't have grounds to appeal or sue or win. So you haven't looked at that alternative, which is to stop allowing the breaking, bending, changing, variance, tempering of our laws in order to benefit the people that donate to your campaigns. Also, if this is an attempt to try and get us to stop suing or to stop appealing, if you increase the fine or the appealing fee, we're just going to sue. So that's already a fail out of the gate. And also, if you think that increasing to $13,000 is something that will stop us from appealing or suing, if we're willing to put together a bond fund for a person to sit in the street and get arrested, we're going to obviously put together $13,000 to continue to sue to make sure that you finally learn your lesson and stop breaking the law. Thank you.
Mickey Jackson.
First off, Section 558, you have the discretion to send it there if you have any desire to see anyone participate in anything except yourselves and the rich to whom you keen. This is also a civil rights issue, and if you don't think that'll come right to your doorsteps, you're living in the clouds, even you there playing on your phone. You are creating a class of people who can afford everything. And by the way, you subsidize those people to the stars, and a class of people who cannot afford to be citizens of their country. It is anti-democratic, but I'm certain our developer-in-chief would love it. You are preventing equity of citizens before the law, equity of participation. This is a naked, huge attempt to just disenfranchise your citizens who you just find annoying. How dare we question your decisions?
Okay, thank you very much. So with that, let's do this. What's been proposed today is a report to Mr. who is it? Herman. We've heard and you come to these meetings each time, you disrupt these meetings. If you disrupt this meeting again, we will ask you to leave. You know the process wherever you're at. If you have an issue, please go speak to the city clerk. I do not have your card. Thank you. I will take that as a threat, Mr. Herman. Let the record show that he stood up. Okay, can we please ask Mr. Herman to leave these chambers, please? Okay. Thank you very much. So what's before us is a proposed report from the Department of Planning and CEO on a comprehensive fee study and recommendations for cost recovery for project services. I will take up Mr. Englander's recommendation that we split these and take up the report, but hold the appeals back. And hear those in 2 weeks. I, too, have some concerns with respect to the appeals. I'm concerned about the abrupt and dramatic increase being proposed, and as we all know, public engagement is a cornerstone to the planning process and something that is distinct, especially to the land use review process in the city. And the planning department has proposed some other options that we received last night, and I think it'd be worthwhile to look at those as opposed to putting these abrupt increases on appeals. So I would like to move that we approve the recommendations of the city planning department with the exception of 19.01-B3. I move to hold a matter of non-applicant appeals in committee and have the department report back in 2 weeks. Yes, City Attorney?
Terry Kaufman, Mesilla City Attorney's Office. Is it the wish of the chair to move it forward without an instruction to the city attorney to draft the ordinance? Because at that point, we draft it, and then it will come back before this body.
Yes, we will. We're sending it to the City Attorney's Office for drafting of the ordinance, with the exception of the non-applicant appeals, and we will hear those back in 2 weeks. Okay? And 19.01-J-8 and 19.01-J-12, I move that these fee levels be set at no more than 20% increase over current fees. Those are the project permit compliance with Design Review Board standard single family and Design Review Board preliminary for single family residential dwellings, that the report we are sending forward, that those fees not be increased more than 20%. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Direction's clear? Okay, thank you, so ordered. Thank you very much. He's requesting a continuance. Okay, thank you very much. Next item is items 8 and 9. If those could be read into the record, please.
Item number 8 is a tract map for 15 lots with 15 houses at 17236 South Hoover Street. And item number 9 is the zone change associated with that, all in Council District 15.
Okay, thank you. Emilio Gutierrez, applicant rep. Craig Keys, applicant rep. I understand you've submitted a request for a continuance. Is that correct? We've continued this item already from before. What's the reason for continuing it again? We have a very heavy agenda in this committee, and we're always trying to find the appropriate time to schedule items, and so it's difficult for us to continue items. If you could speak into the microphone, please.
Yeah, the city continued.
I'm sorry, and if you could identify yourself, please, as well.
Craig Keys, I'm representing the applicant, and the reason we're requesting a continuance is to provide additional pertinent information to issues that were not central to the Commission's initial denial, but that we've become aware of and that we expect that the committee will want information on.
Okay, thank you. My only other concern is, other than having a heavy agenda, is a busy agenda, is that there's a number of speaker cards of people who came out here and took time out of their day to speak on the item. We have about 10 cards. And I hate to ask this, but anybody vehemently opposed to continuing this? All of you. Okay. Yes.
I think the committee and
Can I
go ahead, Mr.
If I can ask a
Engelder.
point of clarification,
Yeah.
since this often happens, and sometimes for many different reasons. What I would ask, if it's possible, so I'll ask the city attorney this, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Is there any way to hear the public comment for people who've taken the time out of their busy schedules to come here and to open it and hear it and then close public comment? If there's no changes from the applicant?
Terry Kaufman, Mesilla City Attorney's Office. That would, yes, you can do that. It's within the discretion of the committee.
Yeah.
But if there's new information that is brought at the continued meeting, then people have the right to speak on that new information.
Right. Is there going to be any new information?
Thank you. Yeah, that's my point, which is this has been continued and has been sitting in the dock for some time. I just don't see how an additional week will help any new information. Some of that should have been presented before. So we're going to hear this item today. And so you have 5 minutes as the applicant rep, Emilio Gutierrez, and Craig Keys.
Okay, thank you very much. As I said, I'm Craig Keys, I'm representing the applicant. As you are aware, this is a project that's been in process for a number of years now, some 5 years. It was denied by the Planning Commission based on consistency findings. We take issue with those findings, each of them, and we believe that there are two overarching problems with the denial. One being that it interprets elements of the community plan in a way that contradict the stated purposes of the plan, and secondly, that it fails to connect the raw evidence on the record with the rationale that and findings that support the decision. So I'd like to go through those. There's 6 points I'd like to make. And, you know, I want to also state that it was found to be consistent with the general plan. The commission acknowledged that it was a beneficial housing project, and so the issues are really limited to consistency questions. So this project site is currently zoned for public facilities. It was deemed surplus, acquired by the applicant, who is seeking a zone change to allow development of 15 homes that are consistent in character with the surrounding development. They are 15 two-story homes, and they are adjacent to an area that is prominently two-story homes, and it's only 15 homes in an area of hundreds of homes, so it would not change the mix, the predominant mix of one-story and two-story homes in any significant way. There was a mitigated negative declaration on it, so all environmental issues and clearances are in order for it. So we're kind of surprised to have to be defending this. We didn't think this was a close call. We thought this should have been an easy approval for a site that's going to be underutilized since Caltrans no longer needs it for public facilities purposes. So specific responses. One, there was the issue of consistency with the general plan framework, objective 3.5, that had to deal with consistency with character and scale. As I said, while the commission asserted that a two-story development was not in character or in scale with the existing development, it's a matter of record that the existing residential development contains significant numbers of two-story homes. It's also a matter of record that the proposed 15 are not numerically significant in addition to the existing development. So it's rather illogical and incorrect to assert that this limited two-story construction project would not be consistent with the overall character and scale of the surrounding development. Again, it's already a mix of one and two-story homes in the area. Another point I'd like to make is that the proposed project is a low-density project. That's what the community plan calls for. The community plan addresses the issue of character and scale by specifying that it should be low to medium density, and this project falls within that. And again, the consistency with the land use policy was called into question. Again, that policy calls for low to medium density housing development on the site, and that's what we're seeking, proposed R11 zoning, which is requested to allow the construction of low density housing, perfectly consistent with the community plan. So again, a conclusion otherwise is illogical and unsupported by the record or any reasonable interpretation of the community plan. The requested zone change is also most consistent with the existing adjacent zoning, and that's consistent with footnote 11 in the community plan, which you're supposed to look to the 500 feet area around the public facilities zone to determine what zoning is most consistent, and we're seeking exactly the same zoning as that plan calls for. And finally, well, not finally, but additionally, consistency with the open space program was called into question. That plan specifically says that it encourages the use of PF zone as open space. It does not say it requires it. And so the commission asserting that the housing development is inconsistent with that program simply because the owner is not proposing to zone the land or use it as open space is not supported. Again, it says encourage rather than require. So it's not appropriate to retain PF zoning of a privately owned site. It denies the applicant the ability to make productive use of the site. The zone change consistency with regard to general welfare, traffic circulation was called into question. Again, there was a environmental clearance of all of those issues, and so all of those issues raised relative to pollution, circulation, and consistency with good planning practices belied the fact that it got a mitigated negative deck and went through advisory agency review.
Right. Thank you.
Thanks. If there's any questions.
Okay. Thank you. John Finnegan, Craig Kusunoki, and Akiko Maeda. 1 minute each. Thank you. Welcome.
Mr. Chairman, committee members, my name is John Finnegan. I'm a resident of the Merritt Track subdivision. 30-plus years as a senior cartographer and civil engineering draftsman has provided me with the professional insight and technical expertise to recognize an unsafe right-of-way interchange. I assert that the Bureau of Engineering is knowingly and willingly violating the city code mandate with their recommendation for the rounded block corner at the intersection of the proposed private street easement and Hoover Street right-of-way. Over the past 12 months, I have delivered the Planning Commission, related committees, and City Clerk Office copious information containing expert findings of fact, city and state code citations supporting my assertion. It has been determined that the content of this material is sufficient to support a judicial review of the decisions of this committee and City Council should it become necessary. I strongly urge you to deny this appeal and disapprove the development based on Section 66474.61D of the California Subdivision Act. Quote, this site is not physically suitable for the density of development. Thank you.
Thank you. Craig Kusunoki.
The LA Times has recently published many articles about building homes too close to a freeway. Air quality officials have warned against building homes within 500 feet of a freeway, yet this project is within 50 feet of a freeway and literally under a freeway. How this is even up for discussion is beyond me. It would be irresponsible to put people in this situation where it's going to be unsafe, unhealthy. I live 2 houses down from this proposed access street where 173rd and Hoover intersect. They both curve into some blind turns. There's already been 2 accidents within the past year. It's not feasible to put a street going through this. This is a very small community. We like to keep it that way. I know the state sold this to make money when they were in a budget crunch. I've worked for the state for 30 years. I know all about budget deficits, but there's a right way and a wrong way to do things. Thank you.
Akiko Maeda, Rosalie Preston, and Juanita Boyd.
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Akiko Maeda. I've been a first resident of this community since 1967. I grew up in the area and I recently moved back. My father would be 100 years old this year, and many of the same neighbors are still there walking the neighborhood. It's been a beautiful community, and without going through all the technicality of zoning and all that, this project basically defies logic. Imagine you have empty space behind those doors, and because it's underutilized, you would build 15 more of these rooms. The only access you have is about half of that door. How does that happen? This property had housing before. It was taken away by eminent domain to make way for freeway, and then now you're going to put this back. It has no logic whatsoever. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have 3 minutes. I'm speaking on behalf of the Neighborhood Council. Rosalie Preston, representing Harbor.
One second, please. Do you have a, what is that thing called on file?
It's a community impact statement that's reflected on, it was on the agenda. And
Is it on there? Okay, great. You have 3 minutes then. Great, thank you.
Rosalie Preston, speaking on behalf of the Harbor Gateway North Neighborhood Council. Nearly 5 years ago, many of us were present in this same room to consider the developer's previous proposal for housing on the surplus Caltrans property, which is located very close to both the 91 and the 110 freeways. At that time, Allison Becker was the planning deputy for Councilmember Buscaino and had formerly been the planning deputy for Eric Garcetti when he was a council member. At that hearing, she stated that the site was unsuitable for residential uses. We are here to reiterate that nothing about the location of the property has changed. It was also during that commission meeting that Mike Wu expressed his dismay that Caltrans would have even sold the property for potential residential development. And because of that and the other commissioners' understanding of the health impact on future residents of the property, the city established the 1,000-foot freeway-adjacent advisory notice for sensitive uses that now applies to all such properties throughout the city. The 3 harbor area commissioners all visited the site before ruling against the proposal, and seeing the site in person is what convinced them to rule against it. Anyone who sees the site comes to the same conclusion. Additionally, on October 2nd, 2012, the City Planning Commission stated that approval of that earlier project for 24 townhomes may put future homeowners' tenants at risk from debris from the Harbor Freeway bus viaduct that is adjacent to the subject site. The western edge of the viaduct is located at least 20 feet from the eastern property line of the property. The proposed site plan indicates some of the proposed homes will be located no more than 5 feet from this elevated busway. At least a 60-foot buffer was recommended, but the conclusion was that even with the recommended modifications, future tenants' owners would be placed at risk for potential health hazards that could negatively impact these future tenants' owners. The current vesting tentative track map recommendation was for only a 50-foot buffer. Previously, a 10-foot sound wall was recommended, and now current city planning staff have said only a 6-foot wall will be adequate to help mitigate the very loud freeway noise that impacts the property. Please sustain the rulings by the Harbor Area Planning Commission for this project and deny the appeal.
Thank you. Juanita Boyd, Andrea Mosqueda, and Ron Robinson.
Good afternoon. If you grant this appeal of the
Can you speak into the microphone? Lift the microphone. Great. Thank you.
Sorry. Hello. If you grant this appeal of the Harbor Area Planning Commission decision, then because of the future impact of the freeway air pollution on the home's residents, you are placing the city in a position for future liability lawsuit. The developer and other partners in the LLC will be long gone, but the city will remain as a decision maker that allowed these homes to be built. Please do not grant this appeal. This is basically about greed at the expense of my neighborhood. These homes are not going to be anywhere near what this picture shows. Again, it's the bottom line is this neighborhood has the amount of homes that are there. Nothing needs to be added, and this is all about greed. Thank you.
Thank you. Ron Robinson. Oh, I'm sorry. We had Andrea, correct? Okay, sorry about that.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Andrea Mosqueda. I live at 17230 South Hoover Street, which is just next to the proposed project site. I am here today to ask you to deny this appeal and reject this proposal. In doing so, you are setting a precedent in prioritizing the health of future residents of this project. I am well aware of the need for housing, but it should not come at the expense of the health of those people that would be living in these homes. The research is out there. Living in such close proximity to a highway is toxic, and it's just not feasible in this tract of land. So please uphold this decision. Doing so would further encourage developers to actually do some research before buying up land in hopes of a quick turnover and a quick buck. I'd like to point out this model, it's beautiful, but that's what it is. It's a model. Add the 110, the 91 freeway above it, all the buses and trucks passing above it, and it's not going to be as pretty. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Councilman. My name is Ron Robinson. I'm resident in the Merritt Tract. I want to urge you to reject this project. We've been at this for, seemed like several years now. One of the problems is that if I would have told you, someone, that a developer was planning to build homes under a freeway, I thought that would be enough to just reject it on hand. But then if I would tell you that this development, a so-called development, had one entrance, which is unsuitable, and then no separate exits, I would think that would even be enough. But, I mean, I can go one step further. We recently, as Ms. Rosalie said, we had the San Pedro commissioners come out. We urged them to come out and see the project. And what we wanted them to do is to see it for themselves, and they collectively said no. And I urge you with my short time here, to say no finally to this ungodly, unsuitable project for our area. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? No. Okay. Did you submit a card, sir? What's your name? Emilio? Okay, you have 1 minute. Your representative has already spoken. They took the 5 minutes, so now you have 1 minute if you'd like to speak. If you could state your name again for the record, please.
Thank you. My name is Emilio Gutierrez, and I'm here on behalf of the applicant. I'm the applicant's representative. And the main objective, the reason why we're here is because we are asking your help to right something that has been done wrong. You know, it seems to us that there is animosity toward the project based on not statement of facts. The truth is that planning department and third parties have already verified that the air quality would be okay, that the traffic impact would be less than significant, that there is no danger to be in that proximity to the freeway, that we are granting 50 feet by 300 feet buffer zone that we're not even required, and we have submitted plenty of evidence to the city and to engineering and to all these hopes that we've been jumping just to prove that the project is good. The project is really good for the community. We have brought in plenty of evidence of that. So we'd like to ask you to please reconsider the facts and the approval. Thank you.
Questions or comments? Yes, I think we did not have our planning department come up, but they should be here to answer any questions or comments. Mr. Blumenfield.
Yeah, I have a question for our planning department. Very skeptical of this project. Want to understand what the mitigations that are in place to deal with the proximity to the freeway issue. I'm hearing a lot of different things, seeing different things in terms of MERV and HVAC, and what are the mitigations that give you comfort on this? Because I'm very uncomfortable about it.
Sure. Matthew Lum, Department of City Planning. Some of the mitigation measures were created from the air quality analysis that was completed, as well as a noise study that was done. So, for example, as far as air quality, they were required to put a minimum 50-foot wide buffer and length of 300 feet, landscape buffer. There were also, as far as noise is concerned, to construct a 6-foot high concrete wall. They were also supposed to put STC 32 glass glazing, as well as provide an air filtration system with MERV 13 filters.
But it's unlike these are homes, right? So that people will be in the backyard. It's not like the apartment projects where we see and they put the inoperable windows and the MERV system and you have the air filter. The backyards are right up against the freeway. Is that right?
Yeah. So the location is that it's at the intersection of the 91 Artesia Freeway and the 110 Harbor Freeway. The subject property is about 50 feet from the Harbor Freeway viaduct, and which is basically a bridge that transitions from the 110 Harbor Freeway to the Harbor Gateway Transit Center, and that is used primarily for HOV traffic as well as the LA Metro Silver Line. So the subject property is about 150 feet from the primary portion of the 110 Harbor Freeway.
How did you get that added up again? So it's 150 feet. The property line is
from the primary portion of the 110 Harbor Freeway. So the closest portion of the 110 freeway is the Harbor Freeway viaduct, and it's a bridge that only the HOV traffic and the LA Metro Silver Line uses.
How far is that? That's 150 feet from the...
No, that's 50 feet.
That's 50 feet.
But the primary portion of the 110 freeway is 150 feet.
Is that HOV lane used? I mean, is it that so buses and
yeah,
other
buses.
things are all...
Yeah, I mean, I used to live in the harbor area, and I used to take the Silver Line, and I used to go down that.
So it's not like it's infrequently used. That HOV lane is used just as much as the rest of the freeway.
Correct.
So what's the distinction? Is it a distinction without a difference?
Well, as far as distinction goes, you need to have, carpool as well as either a hot lane,
But I meant in terms of the health effects from proximity to freeway, why is it healthier to be close to an HOV lane than to the freeway lane?
Well, as far as the health concerns, air quality, again, an air quality analysis was completed for the project. The mitigation measures that we assess in the project are in the determination, and so that generally addresses all of the air quality analysis or air quality concerns.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? No? Thank you very much. We have sometimes granted zone changes here for various reasons. In some instances, the community plans are so outdated that we're trying to keep up with the current trends and changes in the neighborhood. Other times it seems appropriate since we had perhaps missed something. But in this instance, it's hard to find anything that would make an appealing case to grant a zone change. In fact, the Harbor Commission, Planning Commission, in their denial of the project, said that the zone change request is not consistent with the general plan land use goals, and that the project would not be consistent with the general welfare of the Harbor Gateway community due to the proposed project's impact on traffic circulation and health impacts on future residents from adjacent freeways. This council recently adopted a new requirement that any buildings built near freeways that they have additional mitigation for air quality purposes. In this instance, even if we were to do that, it seems that there's no real good reason to do the zone change to allow for the mitigation to happen in the first place. So I would move that we deny the appeals and sustain the Harbor APC decision on that. And any objection to that? Second by Mr. Harris Dawson. So ordered. Thank you. Next item, please.
Item number 7 is continued from...
One second. The folks leaving, you guys looked a bit puzzled. Okay. Next item, please.
Yes, item number 7 is continued consideration of an appeal for the project at 3401 East 1st Street, 49 apartment units, mixed-use residential development.
Okay, great. Thank you. Is staff here to present on this item, please?
Good afternoon. This is Blake Lamb with the Department of City Planning here to present on the item. So this is a case, it's a director's determination that was approved by the Department of City Planning. The CEQA document, the Mitigated Negative Declaration, was appealed to City Council. On May 16th, the CEQA appeal was heard by this committee. The item was continued again to today. At the May 16th plum hearing, the department went into all of the appeal points that the appellant presented in their appeal, and we indicated that the department concluded that there was no merit to the appeal. At the May 16th plum hearing, the appellant submitted an additional letter with 10 additional arguments in addition to their appeal in opposition to the mitigated negative declaration prepared for the project. On Friday, August 4th, the applicant submitted a rebuttal to that May 16th letter from the appellant. And the May 16th letter essentially included 10 arguments, which I'm just going to quickly go through and describe to you the department's position, which is that the appeal of the MND should be denied. The first argument is regarding eminent domain. In addition to the applicant's response letter from August 4th, the department finds that the appellant did not demonstrate any relevance of the alleged state eminent domain law violation to the department's review and approval authority under the LAMC or CEQA law. For argument number 2, in which the appellant alleges that the CRA should be the lead agency, pursuant to site plan review procedures, site plan review does not apply to the project. For argument number 3, which alleges that technical appendices were not made available to the public, this is incorrect. The appendices were emailed to the appellant within 2 days of their request, and in addition, within the environmental folder, the appendices were included in a CD format, which was available at the time that the appellant reviewed the file. Argument number 4 raises the issue that the appellant believes that that the cumulative impact analysis is flawed because it failed to include all relevant projects and is confusing. The department confirmed with LADOT that the analysis was based on proper city standards for review of related projects, and the appellant does not support their argument with substantial evidence. Argument number 5 in the appellant's letter raises the issue that the appellant believes there is a fair argument that there are significant impacts to air quality and hazardous materials, specifically related to an abandoned oil well, the historic use of the site as a lumber yard, and the location of the site in a methane zone. An additional technical expert analysis was submitted to the record by the applicant in their August 4th letter by Anderson Environmental, clarifying that there is no potential for a significant hazard related to the environment that would result in significant impact as defined by CEQA. A second technical expert, Dr. Susan Marins, did a peer review of the Anderson letter in addition to a peer review of the 2014 environmental site assessment prepared by the applicant, as well as a peer review of the 1996 Phase 1 environmental site assessment prepared by Metro, and concludes that all available information does not support a determination of any potentially significant hazardous materials related to the abandoned oil well, the historic use of the site as a lumber yard, or due to the site being located in a methane zone, and therefore the department finds that there is no fair argument of any significant impact related to their argument number 5 from the appellant. Argument number 6 states that the MND is defective because it did not analyze infrastructure deficiencies. The applicant submitted an additional sewer capacity availability request that was prepared by BOE, determined that there was capacity available to handle the wastewater generated by the project. In addition, the appellant did not provide substantial evidence of a fair argument and only submitted speculation related to infrastructure deficiencies. In addition, the applicant is not correct that regulatory compliance measures have to be included as mitigation measures. Regarding argument 4, the applicant claims there's a fair argument related to shade and shadow impacts. In addition to the additional shade-shadow analysis submitted by the applicant in their August 4th letter, the department concludes that the project is exempt from aesthetic impacts under SB 743, which states that aesthetic and parking impacts of a mixed-use residential project on an infill site in a transit priority area are not considered significant, and this site meets those definitions and therefore is exempt pursuant to SB 743. Appellant argument number 8 states a fair argument exists that the project will have a significant land use and planning impacts. The department concludes the information contained in the applicant's August 4th submittal in describing this argument is that the appellant does not cite any evidence to support this argument. The appellant argument number 9 states that a fair argument exists that the project will have a significant archaeological impact. The appellant does not provide substantial evidence of a fair argument. The M&D includes a regulatory compliance measure regarding archaeological materials, and no mitigation measures are required. Finally, argument number 10 states that a fair argument exists that the project will have significant impacts related to police services and that the M&D failed to analyze impacts from citing a sensitive population at the location. On this matter, the appellant does not provide substantial evidence that the project will increase the need for police services, and the appellant only provides argument and speculation. Additionally, the department concurs with the applicant's response letter that the existence of a public controversy regarding the building of the affordable housing project does not require preparation of an EIR, and that there is no substantial evidence before the department that the project may have a significant effect on the environment. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, we will go to the appellant. 5 minutes. Daniel Wright.
Daniel Wright of the Silverstein Law Firm on behalf of El Mercado. Let the record reflect that we have submitted further analysis of CEQA environmental issues. Our appeal presentation will focus on those issues. As much as I admire and respect Blake Lamb, I have to respectfully disagree with some of her analysis today. There is substantial evidence in the record that significant effects may occur, and therefore an EIR is required. On 3 particular issues that we'll focus on today, beyond all the issues that have already been raised in our previous submittals. 1, exposure to hazardous substances, and that has to do with the oil well and the mill. You saw that there was a lot of staff response to that. 2nd, the high likelihood of the significant impact on police services given the sensitive population at this location. It's about location here. And finally, that the project will cause a significant land use compatibility impact because it is inconsistent with the land use designation and policies of the local community plan. So looking at a few details here, first of all, with regard to the need for an EIR, the applicant's submission cannot overcome the strong presumption in favor of an EIR in this case, particularly regarding health risks and environmental contamination. The Lawson letter and the Meridian letter and its attachments do not overcome the fact-based opinions of our expert, who clearly stated that the presence of potentially significant impacts from the project, and they have their own expert. They've actually brought in an expert that disagrees with their previous expert. So they themselves created a record that shows that there's an issue of a potential impact because their own expert initially opined to it. The Meridian report provides the bald conclusion that any contamination on the site, quote, will be easily cleaned up. There is no credible evidence in the record supporting this conclusion because the applicant refuses to do the required testing to determine the level of contamination of the soil on the site. And we're talking about construction dust being risen up at this very highly trafficked location next door with children and elderly people that would be sensitive receptors. The applicant therefore presumes that they can attack our expert's opinion and their own previously circulated expert opinion, and that somehow overcomes the evidence supporting a fair argument. But that's not the way CEQA works. The presumption is incorrect because evidence supporting a fair argument of a significant impact triggers preparation of EIR regardless of the fact that the record may contain contrary evidence. Here we have 2 experts who disagree, and these are significant issues, and there is substantial evidence of a potential impact, and despite what staff says, you're at risk. This should go to an EIR. Additionally, and particularly significant, with regard to the potential impact on police services, in the record that we are submitting today, we have identified and obtained records of the police department showing that 4 other locations operated by a community of friends between 2010 and this year have generated police calls totaling 1,100 calls. That's a lot of police calls to just 4 locations. And therefore, given that the populations served at those locations suggest that there is a likelihood and substantial evidence in the record that there would be a likely significant impact on police services that has not been analyzed at all in the MND. It did not address it at all. And so for that independent reason, there is a strong presumption in favor of preparation of an EIR, given the fact that 1,100 police calls to just 4 locations operated by the applicant in their other locations in the community have generated a very large burden on police services. Finally, the community plan goes on to prioritize the El Mercado as a commercial center. In the plan itself, it says that the pedestrian-oriented commercial centers of Chavez and Soto Street and the Mercado area of First Street be preserved and continue to serve as focal points for shopping, social, and entertainment activities. We do not object to providing services to this population. It has to do with location. It's inappropriate under the community plan, and it's going to expose a number of sensitive receptors to significant health risks, and therefore an EIR should be prepared. For those reasons, our CEQA appeal should be granted. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now turning to the applicant. We have a number of cards as the applicant, so who's going to speak for the 5 minutes? Do you all want to speak for the 5 minutes, or have one and then do others 1 minute? How do you wish to do this?
I'm going to start, and then we'll have the others speak right after.
Okay, so I have Craig Lawson, Dora Gallo, Tony Losasiato, and Nisha Valles.
Are you ready?
Those all? Okay.
Craig
Welcome.
Lawson. This is Craig Lawson, and Chairman, members, thank you for hearing us again. I'm speaking on behalf of a community of friends, a nonprofit that is hoping to build the Lorena Plaza, a 49-unit affordable housing project at First and Lorena in Boyle Heights. The project was approved by the Director of Planning, and that action was not appealed. But the environmental document was appealed, and that appeal is what's before you today. We submitted detailed letters on May 9th and also on August 4th of this year to your committee. And for the reasons stated in those letters, and to support what was said today by the planning staff, we urge you to recommend the denial of the CEQA appeal, allow this project to move forward. We also object to the last-minute submittal by Mr. Silverstein of documents that we have not seen, because there is a process here. We followed that process. They have not. And once again, we want to put that objection on the record. I'm going to ask Dora Gallo to speak, and then she'll be followed by our consultants.
Council members, there are many here today who support the Lorena Plaza project, and they join me in asking you to deny this appeal. If I can ask them to stand, because they're not all going to be speaking today. Please stand, be recognized. They are here today along with this letter submitted by 46 organizations from not only the Boyle Heights community, but throughout the city of Los Angeles, who join me in viewing this appeal as an abuse of the environmental review process. And it is also a test of the City Council's commitment to provide affordable housing.
You can now sit down because you may be blocking other people who would want to see what's going on. Thank you.
I'm conscious of the time here. I just lost 20 seconds. The test of the City Council's commitment to providing affordable housing, ending homelessness, and carrying out the will of the people who approved both Proposition HHH and Measure H. The planning staff did a really good job delineating and addressing the appellant's allegations. I will tell you that this appeal has nothing to do with environmental concerns. At the last meeting, those who are in opposition said several times they asked you to protect their children, and they said that we would put their children at risk. As you know, these are statements as a pretext for discrimination. Lorena Plaza will serve veterans and families. Community of Friends currently operates 40 supportive housing developments, of which 13 of them serve families. We have a stable home and provide stable homes for over 600 children in our buildings. By working with their parents, we are giving these children an opportunity for a much better life than living in their cars, in shelters, on the streets, or in motels. Over the many years that my staff and I have worked on this project, I have met with the Mercado and the representative at least 8 times. At the last meeting in January of this year, they made it very clear to me and my board member that their sole objection to Lorena Plaza is the fact that we're providing housing for people with a mental health disability. Council members, there is no merit to this appeal. This is a CEQA appeal. I urge you to deny it. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Tony Locacciato, Principal of Meridian Consultants. We assisted city staff with preparation of this MND, reviewed the Silverstein Law Firm letter submitted in May, and prepared over 35 pages of detailed responses that Blake discussed with you. None of the comments submitted on the city's MND support a fair argument that supported by substantial evidence is required by CEQA of any potential significant environmental impacts that require the preparation of an EIR for this project. It's important to note that CEQA has a definition of substantial evidence. It's facts, or it's expert opinion supported by facts. Substantial evidence doesn't include arguments, speculation, unsubstantiated opinion, narrative, or information that's incorrect. Our detailed responses to the evidence we submitted respond to all these comments. CEQA requires that information submitted by the appellant that's incorrect not be considered in this matter. The comments on the potential impacts from hazardous material relate to an abandoned oil well that was drilled, never put into production, and then abandoned, and previous uses on the site, including the lumberyard. Existing city and state regulations already address how to handle this abandoned oil well. That's why no mitigation was identified in the city's environmental document. And that's why no additional analysis is required in an EIR regarding these impacts. Opinions were submitted by the expert that prepared the latest environmental site assessment of the site, and Dr. Susan Mearns, a noted expert. They concluded the same thing, despite what Mr. Wright said, which said there are no potential impacts require further analysis. One of the other points raised is on police service. You can have calls for service. It's only an impact under CEQA if additional police facilities have to be built, and those facilities result in impacts.
Okay, your time is up, so if you want to speak for 1 minute, we could afford you. You could state your name for the record, please.
Yes, thank you. My name is Nisha Vyas. I am an attorney with Public Counsel and representing a community of friends today. I wanted to make a couple of points. ACOF's project site was designated for housing in the housing element of the city's general plan, which was approved by the city council and the state. The site is in the housing elements inventory of sites. The housing element states that all sites in the inventory are suitable for development of housing, including affordable housing. So all planning and development decisions, as you know, must be consistent with the general plan. ACOF site was designated in the housing element as a site available to be developed, meaning developed free of housing developed free of constraints and without undue delay. So denying or delaying the project by granting a meritless CEQA appeal would directly contradict the city's general plan. Finally, I just wanted to make very clear what is the CEQA appeal really about. Among other things, the May 16th Silverstein letter contains clear reference to appellant's concern about the, quote, sensitive residents who may not be compatible with the area.
Okay. Your time is up. Thank you. Okay, now we'll go to public comment. Everyone has 1 minute, but we do have someone from LAPD who we also usually provide with whatever time they wish. Senior Lead Officer Cassini, are you here? Okay. Welcome.
Hello, Councilman.
Thank you.
Again, Officer Cassini, LAPD officer out of Hollenbeck Division. I've been assigned there actually been on the job 29 years, assigned there for 29 years, and active senior lead officer for the area, 17 years. As far as this development that is going to be placed there or asking to be placed there, the concerns that our department has, and it wouldn't matter who it was or what was going to be built there, but we have traffic issues there, excessive traffic, wraps around Lorena all the way down First Street. We have 3 active gang members and gangs in that location, Evergreen, Cam, Crazy Ass Mexicans, and White Fence that are very active. The other things, we have a marijuana dispensary not too far from that location. which is about a block and a half away. And then I'm dealing right now with the homeless up and down Lorena between First and Cesar Chavez. That area was zoned, and with the help of the city, because people were using that area to sell vehicles. That was stopped, and now I have problems with the homeless coming there. The complaints I have now there are the excessive amount of drugs that are being sold up and down Lorena now. As far as the amount of apartments or condos or whatever they're going to build there, that'd be a concern for us. I know someone said that we don't have a lot of calls being generated in that area. We do, and a lot of it is property crime. We have a heavy property crime in that area, grand theft auto, burglary for motor vehicle, theft for motor vehicle, all around that area. So those would be some of the department's concerns. Myself as a senior lead officer, I addressed a lot of issues there, and it took me many years to kind of take control of that area, and again, I don't want it to slip away. The other thing that I'm concerned about is the train that goes by there. I don't know if it's going to be families that are going to be placed as homes in these apartments, but right there on Lorena and First Street, there's no crossing as far as anything to barricade from any individuals crossing that street there. So the excessive amount of people that will be there will be a big concern for our department.
Senior Lead Officer Cassini? Angler has a
Just
question.
a quick question. First, thanks for your service.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it. It was stated earlier by, I think it was one of the appellants, that said that over, I think the number was over 1,000 or 1,200 calls were generated to some of the other locations of this proposed operator. Are you familiar with any of that?
Sir, I can tell you that in a couple locations, I don't know about the 4, but I know that of 2 of the locations, we do get excessive calls for service at those locations. At the location and anywhere, if they go to a store nearby, a liquor store, a market, we have problems with the individuals that live in these homes that go there and cause problems. So as far as the amount, I can't tell you that, if that's how many calls came out, but I can tell you that in my experience in the calls that I've handled, I've had to respond to 2 of the locations for problems with tenants or problems with narcotics being sold in the local area or harassing customers at the different markets or gas stations.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll go to general public comment. Each speaker has 1 minute. First speaker is Takita Salisbury, Nicole Bay, and Olivia Lee. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Takita Salisbury. I am the Service Area 6 Program Manager for Coordinated Entry System, as well as I oversee safe parking for families. I strongly advocate for the Lorena Plaza project, as well as my colleagues, our organization with Special Service for Groups Homeless Outreach Program, Integrated Care System, as we've seen in the last 5 years, projects like this really benefiting the community and housing our homeless neighbors with wraparound services, case management on site, as well as providing assistance with medication compliance for homeless neighbors that have mental health circumstance. And so that being said, with there being an influx of homelessness and the ever-increasing numbers, we definitely need projects like this to house our homeless neighbors and reduce our taxpayer dollars, so on and so forth. And so we strongly advocate for this project, and we're standing aside with a community of friends. Thank you.
Thank you. Nicole Bay, Olivia Lee.
Hi, I'm Nicole Bay. I'm with Special Service for Groups. As a matcher for SPA 6, I refer the clients for the 3 ACOF buildings that we currently have. I support the project Lorena Plaza is a need for more permanent supportive housing units, and SPA 6 is growing. Thank you.
Olivia Lee, Mike Alvidrez, Nadine Diaz. Welcome.
Hello, council members. My name is Olivia Lee, representing the Los Angeles Area Chamber of Commerce, here in strong support for the Lorena Plaza project, and to urge this committee to deny the CEQA appeal filed by El Mercado. Approving the appeal would deny Los Angeles voters the mandated action they overwhelmingly supported with Prop HHH and Measure H. We are in a housing crisis with over 30,000 Angelinos currently homeless in the city alone, and this is a 20% increase from the last homelessness count. This is a crucial time for Los Angeles to reaffirm its commitment in sheltering our most vulnerable population by building permanent supportive housing for over 10,000 individuals, veterans, and families experiencing homelessness for over the next 10 years. This project helps our efforts combating homelessness and has the critical support it needs to move forward, including Boyle Heights Neighborhood Council, LA City Planning Department, and the LA County Metropolitan Transportation Authority. Thank you for your time, and we hope you will allow this project to proceed.
Thank you. Mike Alvidrez, Nadine Diaz.
Good afternoon, Mike Alvidrez. I'm representing the Skidder Housing Trust. I want to say I'm here to speak in support of the Lorena Plaza project. I have known ACOF and their work for over 25 years. They have a national reputation for doing high-quality, affordable, and supportive housing all over the country. They are synonymous with what the city needs in terms of the highest standards. I looked carefully at this project. I have to say it looks like a wonderful project. It has the support, overwhelming support of the neighborhood council. I think Metro is also supportive of the project, given that they've extended their lease to allow the project to move forward. I have to say that I find it a bit shocking that this 11th hour attempt to bring up crime statistics, which cannot be verified, is kind of a low blow, particularly when this project is intended to support folks, some of whom have some mental health issues. I think the statistics nationally across the country, year after year after year, say that when people get into housing, they have far less interactions with the police. Thank
you. Nadine Diaz, Renee Chavez, Saba Moine.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Nadine Diaz. I'm 54 years of age. I'm a doctorate student at USC School of Social Work. I work at the USC Health Campus, been there since 1995. I am gravely concerned about the environmental impact of this project. I would like to share with you that there has been a total lack of respect and communication to those who live within a 500-foot radius of this project. We here support the El Mercado, the Boyle Heights East LA Coalition, which I'm a member of. And the Mercado is a place that has antiquity and also historical value to our community. That particular location is not conducive to the needs of housing. Yes, we need housing in this city. Boyle Heights is up to full capacity with high-density housing. I am a social worker. I've worked in mental health. We need to preserve that area and make it a conducive, balanced place to complement the El Mercado. I am very, very disappointed at the way Dora Lung has approached our community.
Thank you. Renee Chavez, Saba Moine, Angela Peterson.
Good afternoon. My name is Renee Chavez. I'm a stakeholder of Boyle Heights, one of the founding members of the Boyle Heights Neighborhood Council, and participate on the Review Advisory Committee for what was the failed red line and which completed as the Metro Gold Line. I support the position of the Rosado family, the owners of the Mercado, and agree with all the points in their application appealing the project known as First in Lorena. The project is not appropriate, needed, or wanted in Boyle Heights by its community and our stakeholders. I recognize that Plum looks at each development separately, but we are long past that point where developments in Boyle Heights are looked at that way. Boyle Heights needs to be addressed as a community plan, and we're not doing that because we haven't had one updated in God knows how many years. The more recent high-density developments include 49 units at Lorena Terrace, 42 units at La Margaritas, 51 units at the Boyle Hotel, and 42 units at First and Evergreen, and I don't remember what the final count is at First and Soda that are currently being constructed. When is enough enough? We say it should be, and we hope that you will too. Thank you.
Saba Moine, Angela Peterson.
Hi, yes, my name is Saba Moine. I'm with the Corporation for Supportive Housing, a national nonprofit and CDFI focused on housing solutions as a platform for services for the most vulnerable individuals. I'm honored to voice support for ACOF and the Lorena Plaza project. As you are all aware, in LA City, on any given night, 34,000 men, women, and children are experiencing homelessness, a 20% increase since last year. Last fall, LA voters supported Measure HHH. That's $1.2 billion in bonds for housing people experiencing or at risk of homelessness. Measure H, also overwhelmingly supported by LA voters. Because of these initiatives, we are now more urgently tasked to house our homeless neighbors. This is not a theoretical concept, but one that requires immediate action, namely in the creation of supporting housing units. This project quite literally is a realization of what LA residents voted to do when casting their ballots last fall. Thank you.
Angela Peterson, Tim Peters.
Hello, I'm Angela Peterson. I'm representing New Directions for Veterans. We work with homeless veterans in Boyle Heights as well as throughout Los Angeles County. We've already seen a 50% increase in veteran homelessness, and we need to start working on that. And we say that we want to help them, and it's time we start doing that, and this is the first step.
Tim Peters, Daniel Rivera.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Tim Peters. I've worked with the homeless and housing population in Los Angeles for the last 26 years. This is an unprecedented time in our history. For the first time in decades, that we have both the elected officials and the constituents agreeing that the issues of affordable housing and homelessness needs to be addressed. And Measure HHH and Measure H having passed, the resources are finally here and available to make a difference. The people have spoken and the political will is there, and all that is needed is the implementation of these resources. This project is not only a wonderful project, but it also is being done by a very reputable and respectful organization, ACOF, and it sets a precedent to future developments. NIMBYism is an issue, and if this project is not allowed to go forward and prevail, the whole Measure HHH and Measure H resources are of no avail. The city and the county have a huge gap in affordable housing, and I want to support this project.
Daniel Rivera, Gloria Gutierrez.
Good afternoon. I'm appalled, really, I came here thinking that I was okay as a person, and I'm being talked about as I'm a liability. There's so much stigma and prejudice over people with mental illness. I don't suffer from mental illness. I coexist with it. Why? Because I have affordable, supportive housing. I've been housed for 11 years. 11 years. Never had contact with the police once. My neighbors, my other neighbor, 10 years. Never police were called on. So I think this is just a red herring. I don't think it's fair. I care about my community. I have a vegetable garden in the backyard that we all tend in our building. I am a good neighbor. I care about the safety of my community. And the safety issues around my community have nothing to do with my building. Gang activity, alcoholism has nothing to do with us. So I really urge that the council approves the project. Thank you.
Gloria Gutierrez, Tony Zapata, Becky Dennison.
Hello, Councilmember Wisad and members of the Plum Committee. I'm here on behalf of Mercy Housing, but also as a lifelong resident of Boyle Heights. I've lived there for 26 years, and I'm here in support of the Lorena project and urge you to deny the CEQA appeal filed by the Rosados. Last year, we had a huge win with Prop HHH because Los Angeles residents and leaders understand the desperate need for affordable housing. Lorena Plaza is an appropriate size and design as many other affordable housings approved in Los Angeles, as well as similar projects in the Metro-owned lot in Boyle Heights, and also meet the need of housing in the neighborhood. I urge you to not allow public testimony suggesting that this project will put our children in danger and deter the committee from denying the CEQA appeal. Many of the issues brought on today are not in fact environmental impact concerns, but social concerns that should not apply under the CEQA appeal. As a resident of Boyle Heights, I understand that veterans have special needs, but I still believe they should be allowed to live in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Tony Zapata.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Tony Zapata. I'm with the Veterans of Foreign Wars in Boyle Heights in East Los Angeles, and I live in the Boyle Heights area. And one thing that bothers me is two words when I hear them: homeless vets. Those are two words that should never go together. So I'm in support of this building to have veterans that are out there in need of housing to have a roof over their heads, an address where relatives, friends can visit them. So I highly support this building coming up, and I hope you take that into consideration. Thank you very much.
Becky Dennison, Ann Sewell, Jerry Jones.
I'm Becky Dennison. I work with Venice Community Housing. I also worked in Skid Row, and I live in South Los Angeles, so I've worked and lived in and around permanent supportive housing for more than 20 years. I cannot say more good things about Community of Friends. I mostly work with tenants of permanent supportive housing, not staff, and it's from that perspective that I say that a Community of Friends is an excellent landlord, an amazing property owner, and helps people transform their lives and contribute positively to the community. I also want to talk about the issue of police calls out of context. What the officer didn't say is, yes, police get a lot of calls about homeless folks, black folks, people with mental illness. That doesn't mean there's a crime issue. That means there's a fear issue, a racism issue, a lack of understanding of the symptoms of mental illness. So to consider that outside of the context, it could be that people are just calling out of fear, and that's probably the case because there are no public safety issues in any of our permanent supportive housing developments throughout the city. There won't be in this one, so we're looking for your leadership to approve projects and not consider invalid CEQA claims. Thank you.
Thank you. Ann Sewell, Jerry Jones, Amy Anderson.
Good afternoon, council members. Ann Sewell with the California Community Foundation. We submitted a letter along with United Way and the Chamber of Commerce commenting on the fact that we were so proud last year to stand with you in supporting HHH, and that the time has come for all of us to step up and actually build the permanent supportive housing units that the voters are counting on us to build, and Lorena Plaza is one that should be built. The fact that it was in the city's housing element list, the fact that all these neighbors support it, the fact that CEQA law does not actually allow us to consider supportive housing differently than other kinds of housing and look at things like police calls in the environmental review are all reasons why we should move forward on this project, and thank you very much for your consideration.
Jerry Jones, Amy Anderson, Elizabeth Garcia.
Jerry Jones with the Inner City Law Center. I want to speak very strongly in support of Lorena Plaza. The neighborhood council supports it. Your city department supports it. I think what we've heard from the opponents is evident. This is a cover and a front to excuses to try to keep poor people, folks who have experienced homelessness, away. ACOF is doing its job in building this housing, and it is also the responsibility of Plum to tend to the housing needs of this city, where we have tens of thousands of people with nowhere to lay their heads, hundreds of thousands of people who can't make rent on a regular basis. We need more affordable housing. There is no good reason to block this particular development. And so I will leave you with that. Thanks.
Amy Anderson, Elizabeth Garcia, Jeffrey Sutton.
Elizabeth Garcia, board member for a Community of Friends. Today you have the ability to demonstrate your commitment to solving homelessness. It's incumbent upon you, the political will, to solve this problem. You have the opportunity to provide 49 units of housing to people who need it, who warrant it, to veterans who have served our country, to families who have paid their taxes. They need and deserve a home just like the rest of us have. You will hear and have heard from the other community organizations that support ACOF. Our board is very proud to work on homelessness. We will continue to do so despite any roadblocks. Thank you for your time.
Jeffrey Sutton, Kaylee Hayward, Christina Hayward, and Andrea Marchetti.
Yes, good afternoon. I live in an ACOF building. I have for the last 11 years, and there's only one way to put this into context. 14 years ago, I was in old New Folsom prison on a second strike term, looking to serve the rest of my life in prison for petty crimes. And the parole department never once mentioned anything about permanent supportive housing because it's not in their interest to keep you on the streets. It's their agenda to keep you behind bars where they can make money off you. I've been in supportive housing, and it's changed my life so much that I've volunteered to plant trees in Boyle Heights with a certain council member. Although I live in South Park, I've helped the mayor get reelected. I'm involved in my community. And I never would have been able to do this without permanent supportive housing. It changes lives. Thank you.
Kaylee Hayward, Christina Hayward, and Andrea Marchetti.
Hello, my name is Kaylee Hayward. I'm 18 years old and a senior at Centennial High School. I live at the Willowbrook Apartments. It's a community of friends building, and living in one of their buildings has given me a chance not only to be a kid, but a chance to have a future by having somewhere to call home. This is why I hope you approve this project and give other families a chance like I got. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Christina. My family and I have lived in a community of friends building for 7 years. They gave me a chance to be a mom and gave me hope. My kids are A and B students. My son has a 4.0 grade point average. My daughter has been in Girl Scouts for 3 years. She is 18. As a mom, I suffer from a mental health illness. I was diagnosed with PTSD and depression. I have overcome my fears through therapy. A community of friends has changed my life with their supportive services. My husband has a full-time job, and I'm a Compton Girl Scout leader. I hope you approve this project of permanent supportive housing for all families can have somewhere to call home like I do. Thank you.
Thank you. Darius Direction, not here. Okay. Ray Fukuda, Edward Tamayo, Frank Romero Crochet. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Wisad and the Plum Committee. My name is Ray Fukuda, and I'm here on behalf of the Little Tokyo Service Center. We are affordable housing developer for more than 32 years. I am here in fully support of the project, Lorena Plaza project, and we strongly urge the Plum that Plum deny the CEQA appeal. To date, we have completed over 1,000 units of affordable housing all across the city of LA, and we own and operate a similar size project, actually slightly larger, in Koreatown near major streets, Pico and Vermont, and it's actually a similar mix of family housing and permanent supportive housing. And we've passed that project with no CEQA issues. There are no traffic issues. There are no police burden to the services in that issue. So we don't really see how this Lorena Plaza project would have any grounds for CEQA appeal. We hope you support the project. Thank you.
Thank you. Edward Tamayo.
Hello, my name is Edward Tamayo. I'm here to represent against the project. Okay, by their own volition, these people have said that there's an influx of homeless into Boyle Heights. I haven't met a person from Boyle Heights homeless in years. I've met people from Pennsylvania, Kentucky, Maine, Georgia, many states, but not from our community, not even from LA. Okay, these people have not gone around, like she stated earlier, 500 feet. They still have not been informed. I inform them. They inform them. We talk about it. They can be against it. I don't care. But they have not been informed to this day. Okay? And also, it's just the traffic problem that will occur. We need parking. Metro said they're going to give us parking. Where is it? Can you tell me, Mr. Weezer, where the parking's coming? We have a whole corner, including the parking lot of the Mercado, to make parking. Where's that? And the gentleman said that his police officers' numbers, give me 1 second. His numbers cannot be verified. I would be insulted if I was that police officer stating such a statement. I'm sure they can be verified.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Frank Romero Crochet. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Frank Romero Crochet, Rogelio Nene, and Marco Resendez.
Okay, I'm going to go before the music starts. Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the Los Angeles Plum Committee. My name is Frank Romero. I'm here representing United Way of Greater Los Angeles and the Home for Good initiative to end homelessness in Los Angeles. On behalf of our President and CEO, Elise Buick, and the hundreds of thousands of LA residents who have voted in full support of Proposition HHH, a proposition that houses our homeless neighbors and families of low income, we urge you today to deny the request for the CEQA appeal filed by El Mercado in relation to the Lorena Plaza project. It's a critical time for the LA City Council to affirm its commitment to building supportive housing for our homeless neighbors that will essentially eradicate street homelessness in the city in the next 10 years. The President and CEOs of the United Way, LA Area Chamber of Commerce, and the California Community Foundation just submitted a letter in support of a community of friends who is committed by mission to build affordable housing and permanent supportive housing because it transforms lives. We're here with so many of our colleagues to show our support to a community of friends because of their exceptional track record as a developer and their stellar reputation as an operator. Thank you.
Rogelio Nene, Marco Resendiz.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Rogelio Nene. Vengo por cuestión de que allí pues no estamos
Un momento,
de acuerdo.
por favor, le va a traducir en inglés. Okay, go ahead. Si dice algo, unas pocas palabras, y ella va a decir en inglés y luego usted pocas palabras.
Mi nombre es Rogelio Nene. Nene. Pues vengo nomás por ver sobre el caso de... No estamos de acuerdo en el proyecto que tienen ahí en el... Digo, ¿por qué va a perjudicarnos a todos allí, en el lugar? Como todo acá en el centro, se han visto como hay mucha violencia, hay muchos homeless, no vamos a estar seguros porque van a estarse metiendo y ¿por qué mejor no? Pueden hacer un parque para carros, estacionamientos. Creo que será mejor. Bueno, gracias.
Gracias. Marco Resendiz, ¿necesita traducción? Okay, gracias.
Mi nombre es Marco Resendiz. Con todo respeto para todos ustedes que están aquí en público y a ustedes aquí enfrente. Yo vivo ahí a un bloque de ahí, nomás una pregunta para todos, ¿les gustaría a ustedes que pusieran algo cerca de su casa, así como lo que quieren construir? Es todo, gracias.
Gracias. Thelma Brenes, Felipe Cortés, Jorge Galvez, Elizabeth Galvez. Thelma Brenes, Felipe Cortés, Jorge Galvez, Elizabeth Galvez.
Good afternoon. My name is Elizabeth Galvez. I'm a Boyle Heights resident. People seem to think that developments mostly affect adjacent property or business owners, when in reality it affects the whole neighborhood. This is our home where families like mine were raised. I stand firmly against this large project that does not belong in our neighborhood. Instead of trying to devalue our community, we should take time to enrich our community with a development that benefits all of whom already reside in Boyle Heights. Esta es nuestra comunidad, no los desalojen.
Thank you.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Felipe Cortés y he escuchado muchas mentiras con relación al lugar donde quieren hacer un proyecto.
Un momento.
Sí.
I've heard a lot of lies been said today regarding the project.
Nuestro amigo el oficial de policía, con todo respeto, también dice mentiras porque ese lugar donde dice que se reúnen drogadictos y gente mala está cercado. ¿Cómo puede estar la gente adentro?
The officer also said some lies. There's not a lot of drug use or a lot of people hanging out in that area.
Representa un grupo grande en la cultura y en las artes.
I represent a large group in the arts community.
Y a mucha gente de la comunidad porque soy vecino del lugar. Vivo ahí en La Lorena y tiene su casa. Lo que pasa...
¿Cómo dijo? Repítame.
Vivo en La Lorena y represento a mucha gente que vive y que clases que patrocina y que apoya el mercadito, clases de arte para niños, adolescentes y adultos.
He supports a lot of people support him that take classes in that community there in the mercado.
Por lo que sugerimos que esos proyectos que quieren hacer no funcionan, no son los
These
adecuados.
projects are not supportive of the neighborhood.
Y manifestamos nuestra oposición a ello, manejando el sentido común, porque las familias necesitan otro tipo de
Opposing the
proyectos.
project because it's not good for the community.
Por eso es que pues solicitamos a ustedes que tengan ese apoyo hacia las familias que vivimos ahí, y no gente que viene de fuera nada más diciendo cosas que ni conocen el área.
We're hoping you support our point of view and not the people that are not in that close area of where we're talking about the project.
Así es, hay muchas mentiras que han dicho.
There's
La
a lot
verdad,
like
hay
that
que
they've
vivir
told.
ahí para
We
conocer.
have to live there to understand what's really going on.
Ok, gracias.
Thank you.
You are?
Jorge Galvez.
Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Jorge Galvez. Also a Boyle Heights resident and a graduate of Roosevelt High School. I want to reiterate what my sister stated. Developments like this affect the whole community. Large development companies wanting to establish themselves, not taking consideration of families and residents that live there. It's sad if you notice. And people who live in Boyle Heights rarely move out of Boyle Heights because it's not another city, but a community of people who share similar beliefs and live. We, Boyle Heights, are not just another city where you could think you come and invade. We are a community that wants to continue to feel safe where we live. The sense of community that Boyle Heights portrays is something we don't want to change. Please don't try and change that and help better our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Thelma Brenes is not here. Okay. Juan Garcia, Noemi Lopez, Dolores Matias. Not here? Okay. Go ahead. Juan Garcia, Noemi Lopez, Dolores Matias.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Juan García, como lo acaba de mencionar,
Good afternoon, my name is Juan Garcia, like I just mentioned.
y estamos representando aquí la comunidad de Boyle Heights.
We're representing here the community of Boyle Heights.
Sentimos que la comunidad no está preparada para un proyecto de esa magnitud.
We feel that the community is not prepared to deal with this project of this magnitude.
Sentimos que si ese proyecto se lleva a cabo, lo que va a provocar
We feel that if this project goes on,
va a provocar como el abordamiento de gente que vive en la calle, las banquetas, van a abordar más las banquetas.
we feel that if this project goes on, you know, the people that live in the street, the homeless, are going
Más
to
homeless.
be taking over the benches, you know, in the city.
La gente que está acostumbrada a realizar sus ejercicios en las banquetas de Lorena y Evergreen, todo eso, temen por la seguridad de que se pueden sentir abordadas por homeless.
You know, people that do that exercise in the benches where Lorena is, you know, they're feeling really fearful that those people that are homeless are going to be taking over that area.
Y toda la gente que estamos de este lado, la mayoría que nos acompaña, estamos ubicados en el 3425, el edificio del Mercadito.
You know, and everybody here on my right-hand side, everybody is pretty much located on the 3525, the building in El Mercadito.
Es un centro familiar,
That's a family center.
es un negocio familiar,
It's
¿no?
a family business.
Entonces, al llegar a ese tipo de edificio, sentimos que vamos a estar afectados comercialmente.
So I think that from the commercial point of view, if we allow this type of building, we're going to be commercially affected, you know.
Entonces, estamos aquí para pedir de la manera más atenta que consideren nuestro desacuerdo con la construcción.
So we're here in the most respectful manner to request police to deny that construction.
Pienso que...
Gracias, ya se le acabó el tiempo. Sí, gracias. Noemi López, Dolores Matias, Juan Rivera.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Noemí López.
Good afternoon, my name is Noemi Lopez.
Yo soy residente por 20 años.
I'm a resident for 20 years.
a 2 cuadros del Mercadito del Este de Los Ángeles,
I live 2 blocks away from the Mercadito in East Los Angeles.
lo cual es el lugar de mi trabajo, escuelas,
That's where I work, that's where my schools are.
los proyectos que quieren poner, cual sea, no nos beneficia en ninguna parte.
The projects that you're trying to put in there are not benefiting us in any sense.
Porque lo que nos hace falta es cuidado a nosotros, no tener gente que ni siquiera está apegada ahí, porque esos edificios que quieren hacer no es para nosotros mismos.
Okay, because what is happening right now is that those buildings do not benefit us directly. Those buildings will benefit people that don't live in the area.
Son personas que llegan cerca de otros lugares que no sabemos ni conocemos, que quieren apropiarse de nuestros lugares de trabajo.
You know, these people come from somewhere else. We don't know them. We don't know what they do. They want to come over and take over our jobs.
Necesitamos algo más seguro, lo que ustedes quieran poner, pero que sea seguro para nosotros.
We need something else. Whatever you want to put there, but it has to be safe for us.
Es todo lo que puedo decir. Nada más cuidado de mi comunidad. Gracias.
That's all I want to say. Just want to take care of my community. Thank you so much.
Gracias. Dolores Matías, Juan Rivera, Christian Flores. Dolores Matías. Sure.
We're having a serious problem with the microphones. People are not hearing, so when the interpreter or anybody approaches the microphone, they need to speak into the microphone or do something with the sound because it's very problematic.
Okay. Thank you. Dolores Matías, Juan Rivera, Christian Flores. Not here? Stephanie Martinez. Not here. Elida Plaza. Not here. Guadalupe Hernandez. Not here. Andrea Mendoza. Andrea Mendoza. Mirza Mondragon. Isabel Gonzalez. Welcome.
Hello, good afternoon. I came here in part of the Mercadito. First of all, I want to state that I do not condemn homelessness. Yeah, I do not condemn homelessness. I've been living and I've been in this community for more. My age is 17, and I live in the Boyle Heights community. I live exactly by the projects, the orange projects, and near Oscar de Loya. So I don't believe this is the best thing. In my neighborhood, there's always constant police surveillance. In the Mercadito, there's constant police. There's active gang members. I don't say that gang members are welcome, but we don't want them either. The housing is going to cause a lot of problems within our community. Living in the Boyle Heights community, most of the time, I'm told not to walk. In the Mercadito, I'm told never to be alone. We're a family-based community. A lot of us are, how do you say? We're not scared, but we dislike this because we haven't been told with
Thank you.
advance.
Okay, thank you. You're Andrea, correct? Okay. Mirza Mondragon, Isabel Gonzalez.
Buenas tardes.
Good afternoon.
Me llamo Mirza Mondragón
My name is Mirza Mondragon.
y vivo en Boyle Heights,
I live in Boyle Heights.
muy cerquitas de donde se propone el proyecto de la Primera y la Lorena.
I live very close to that project where is First and Lorena.
Me presento aquí para expresar que estoy opuesto al proyecto de la Primera y la Lorena
I am here in opposition of the project on First and Lorena,
y apoyo la apelación.
and I'm supporting the
When you interpret, can you speak into the microphone? Yeah, you need to do that. Yeah.
Okay. Cuando MTA puso las rieles del metro en la calle Primera,
When MTA put the rails in First Street,
eliminó un carril de tráfico en cada lado de la calle.
it deleted one of the spaces for the traffic in each way.
Y todo el estacionamiento en la calle Primera desde la Indiana
And everything affected in the traffic from the Indiana Street
hasta pasando la calle Lorena,
all the way through Lorena.
ahora invaden el vecindario
And now it's all over the neighborhood.
y muchas veces no puedo estacionarme cerca de mi casa.
And many times I'm not able to park near my home.
Y ahora están proponiendo un proyecto con falta de estacionamiento
Right now they're proposing a project that does not have parking.
que agrava el problema.
That is making this problem even worse.
Estoy 100% segura que mi calidad de vida será afectada negativamente con este proyecto.
I am 100% sure that the quality of life is going to be totally affected by this quality of this project.
Thank you. Isabel González, Filimón Plata. Un momento, por favor. Filimón Plata, okay. María Martínez. Irma Ramírez. Irma Ramírez here? ¿Está aquí? No? Okay.
Buenas tardes, mi
Tardes.
nombre es Isabel González
Good afternoon, my name is Isabel González.
y soy residente de Boyle Heights.
I am a resident of Boyle Heights.
También trabajo ahí por más de 20 años
I also worked there for more than 20 years.
y estoy aquí para pedirles y suplicarles a ustedes, el Comité de Desarrollo Urbano,
I'm here to ask you and to beg you to please to the Committee of Development
que no pasen este proyecto,
to deny this project.
porque ya que veo que el desarrollador trajo a varias personas para apoyarlo,
You know, I see that the bill brought here a lot of people to support his position.
pero estoy segura que esas personas no viven en ese lugar, no saben realmente cómo es la comunidad.
But I'm sure that these people don't live in the community, and I'm sure they do not know how the community is.
Yo estoy ahí los 7 días a la semana, llego a las 10 de la mañana, me voy a las 9 de la noche y estoy segura que ese proyecto no va a ayudar para nada a la comunidad.
I'm there on a daily basis. I get there at 10 o'clock in the morning. I leave at 9 p.m. at night, and I'm very sure that this project is not going to help the community.
Yo no entiendo cómo pueden hacer una vivienda a una comunidad sensitiva directamente enfrente de los rieles del tren. Eso sería peligroso para ellos.
Do not understand how is it that you're going to build in a community. You're going to build a community right in front of the rail station.
Eso podría causar varios accidentes a las personas y también principalmente por falta de estacionamiento. Nosotros que estamos ahí nos damos cuenta, tenemos que buscar estacionamientos a tal vez 10, 20 millas para poder llegar a nuestro trabajo.
Okay, this is going to cause a lot of accidents to people in the area. Also, this is going to cause a serious problem with parking. You know, I have to walk 10 to 20 miles to find parking, and this is going to really be a problem for my community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Filimón.
Buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Filimón Plata.
Good afternoon, my name is Filimón Plata.
Es un gusto conocerlo, señor. Wizard solo lo había mirado por televisión.
It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Wizard. I only saw you in TV.
Okay, soy parte de la comunidad de Boyle Heights y vengo en desacuerdo con el proyecto que tienen.
I am part of the Boyle Heights community, and I'm here I'm not supporting the projects that you're presenting.
Como todos sabemos, este proyecto va a estar cerca de una plaza que ya está por muchos años y que es frecuentada por mucha gente, no solo de aquí alrededor, sino de fuera.
As you know, this project is going to be built right across from a square, a plaza that everybody knows is there in the community. So it's visited by us, but also by visitors.
Y como todos sabemos, en estos últimos años estamos mirando que se ha puesto un poco conflictivo en la cuestión del espacio.
As we know, lately, a few years ago, we're having a problem with the space. There is no parking. There's no space for anybody.
Con la realización del metro, esto vino a que se cancelaran espacios de estacionamiento frente a esta plaza.
When the metro was built, that caused in terms that some parking spaces were canceled, parking spaces in front of the plaza.
Y nosotros que residimos ahí y los que tenemos negocio ahí dentro de esta plaza hemos tenido que recurrir a otro tipo de opciones.
You know, and those of us that actually are residents of the area and also have business in that area, we need to find other options.
Aparte de este proyecto, los inquilinos pienso que deberían de estar en otra área mucho más calmada que esto porque viene mucha gente aquí.
You know, also I think that this project should be, the tenants should be in another area, an area that is a little bit more calm because this place is too busy.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Yes. Un momento. María Martínez, ¿verdad? Mercedes Sánchez, Carmen Gutierrez, Tony Rosado.
Tengo 25 años con mi negocio en el mercadito y cuando el metro compró esos terrenos,
I have 25 years with my business in El Mercadito, and when Metro bought that land,
lo compró desubicando a unos negocios que tenían muchos años diciendo que iban a poner un parking.
what they did is that they took out some of the businesses that were there for a long time and promising that they were going to put instead a parking lot.
No sé por qué nunca han sido construidos. Yo cada 3 meses pago mis impuestos y creo que tengo derecho a opinar de que no necesitamos ahí más habitaciones, necesitamos parking.
You know, this parking has never been built. I have been there for 3 months, and they have not. Every 3 months, I pay my taxes, and we do not need this location. We need, this to be done. We need more parking lot, more parking spaces, actually.
Si el metro nunca se decidió a construir parking, ¿por qué no nos venden el local mejor al mercadito? Nosotros lo necesitamos.
You know, if Metro never decided to, went on with the parking lot, why don't they sell that property to us? We can use that.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Gracias. Mercedes Sanchez, Carmen Gutierrez, here? Okay.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mercedes Sanchez. I'm a member of the community of Boyle Heights. Today, I'm here because I oppose to the project for the First and the Lorena. Please, sirs, we need park over there. The community, they don't have park, and we need green areas for our children. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope you hear and support our voices.
Thank you. Carmen Gutierrez, Tony Rosado, Andre Baker.
Good afternoon. My name is Carmen Gutierrez, and I before live at First Street. When the metro start construction, the metro, they give us a letter to sign and say, when we going construction the metro and First Street, and Lorena and First Street, we're going to provide you the neighbors parking lot in there. We're going to construction a big parking lot with fence, and we're going to give you some key for the residents, the First Street. I was living in 3212 East First Street, and I never see nothing of that. Now, the other choice, they say, oh, we're going to make a little, some greens, trees, and tables, and something for the families, and never do nothing. Please, make something like parking lot or something for the elderly people, for old people, or for the child. Thank you.
Thank you. Tony Rosado, Andre Baker, Roberto Garcia Ceballos, Carmen Fuentes.
Good afternoon, Honorable Councilman Huizar, and members of the Plum Committee. My name is Tony Rosado on behalf of El Mercado de Los Angeles. I'm here to clear up any misconceptions as to why we're opposed to the project on First and Lorena. For starters, the MTA and the developer have for 2 decades deceived the immediate community as to what is planned for the subject property. The deception began in 1998 when MTA took the property by eminent domain with the promise of building a metro station there. As we all know, that never came to fruition. The MTA then promised the community green space, recreational areas, and projects to enrich the community at the First and Lorena site, none of which are being fulfilled. The developer failed to do any significant community outreach, namely to the surrounding neighbors. They have instead disregarded the needs and wants of the real stakeholders, the neighbors. Besides betraying the trust of the community, the project has objective flaws that will negatively impact the surrounding area. The project is proposed on an old oil well, and adequate studies haven't been done to determine if it's safe to do so.
Great. Thank you very much. Andre Baker. Welcome.
Hello, Councilman. My name is Andre Baker, and I work for Hoppage, which is a division of special service groups. And I want to support the Lorena project, and I really have to say that a community of friends, it's an awesome program. It's an awesome organization. I worked with them for about 7 years, and their commitment to provide a certain service for their clients is awesome. This young lady that spoke today is where she's at today because of ACOF, and ACOF's willingness to have us come in and provide therapy, counseling, etc. So I want to support the project and the community of friends.
Thank you. Roberto Garcia Ceballos, Carmen Fuentes, Fanny Ortiz.
Hi, my name is Roberto. I'm a resident of Boyle Heights, and I am a community organizer with the East LA Community Corporation. And I'm here to urge you to deny the sequel appeal. Mercadito's appeal has no significant proof of environmental impacts to the community, and even including the small businesses. Instead, this appeal has scapegoated people with special needs and veterans, and has agitated discriminatory comments towards this community. Families are in major need of housing. Just this month, the East LA Community Corporation opened open applications for 50 units of affordable housing on First and Soto, and we have more than 1,500 applications as of now. We have been working closely with ACOF, where our members have worked to shape a truly community-driven development, meaning that our community members have worked closely to design this housing.
Carmen Fuentes, Fanny Ortiz, Imelda Alvarez.
Buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes.
Mi nombre es Carmen Fuentes y estoy aquí para ayudar al proyecto de la Lorena y Primera. Señor Guizar, de su aprobación.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is, ¿su nombre nuevamente?
Carmen Fuentes.
My name is Carmen Fuentes. I'm here to support the project in Lorena and First. Mr. Wizard, please support that project.
Estoy aquí porque ese proyecto va a ayudar a muchas personas que están rehabilitadas, personas de la tercera edad.
I'm here because this project is going to help a lot of people. They're going to help people in the senior citizens and people that are in need of rehab.
Creo que todos debemos de tener una vivienda digna para poder estar tranquilos. Yo no quiero ser egoísta de que no deben de hacer ese proyecto.
You know, I think that everybody deserves to have living quarters where you can live in with dignified manner. I don't want to sound like I am a selfish person, but this project.
Porque ese proyecto va a ayudar a muchas personas. Primero hay que ver la actitud de las personas para poder decir que no quieren esas personas ahí.
Okay, I think this project is going to help a lot of people. First, you have to look at the attitude of people to see that those people need or not help.
Si ya son personas rehabilitadas y personas de la tercera edad, yo pienso que no hay ningún problema con ese proyecto.
I think these people already undergo some sort of rehab, and these people are senior citizens. I don't think we have any problems with that project.
Primero hay que ver los aspectos de las personas.
First, we need to see where those people are.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much.
Gracias. Fanny Ortiz, Imelda Alvarez.
Hi, everyone. My name is Fanny Ortiz, and I am from Boyle Heights. I am a single mother of 5 with my youngest of special needs. I'm here to support the ACOF housing development for low-income veteran families and special need folks. I myself experienced displacement within my community, and I was homeless for 2 years. But thanks to affordable housing, my life was transformed. Having access to affordable housing made an impact on the quality of my life, allowing me the opportunity to work, go back to school, and become a community organizer within my community, including winning a seat in the Boyle Heights Neighborhood Council and serving the city of LA as a budget advocate. My story is one of many, but when it's shared, it becomes transformative. I believe housing is a basic human right. We are in a housing crisis, and development of affordable housing is the equitable solution. ACOF is a trustworthy organization within Boyle Heights. We believe that ACOF will develop housing that will benefit families in need and not impact community members and small businesses in any way environmentally or economically. Thank you.
Imelda Alvarez, Guillermina Gonzalez, Marta Isaias.
Buenas tardes. No sé cómo queda. Muy buenas tardes. Estoy aquí para apoyar el proyecto.
Good afternoon. I'm here to support the project.
Mi nombre es Imelda Álvarez y he sido residente de Boyle Heights por 30 años.
My name is Imelda Alvarez, and I have been a resident of Boyle Heights for 30 years.
Y he visto los cambios en Boyle Heights, pero no muy positivos. Y he trabajado de mano con las organizaciones y en las escuelas para apoyar estos proyectos.
I have seen the change in Boyle Heights, but unfortunately the change has not been very positive. I have worked with churches and other organizations to support different projects.
Y todavía seguimos con la gran necesidad y por eso le pido al concejal y a su mesa directiva que nos apoye porque la necesidad en Boyle Heights es muy grande.
And we have seen the great necessity, and that's the reason why we're requesting please the councilman, and also his directive board to support us.
Tenemos que apoyar estos proyectos porque de lo contrario seguiremos viendo más personas viviendo en la calle.
We really need to support this project because otherwise we're going to see a lot of people still living in the streets.
Los apartamentos no creo que vayan a ser un gran problema porque tienen su parking propio y tienen se han hecho todos los estudios necesarios también para el medio ambiente y todo se ha hecho en orden.
I don't think the apartments are going to be any problem because they do have their own parking space and they have conducted a lot of environmental studies, so everything seems to check up great.
Pues es todo lo que quiero decirle. Ya me conoce por años y seguiré luchando porque todavía no tengo uno de esos. Gracias.
That's all I want to say. You know me for years, but I'm going to keep fighting, and I want to say thank you so much for your help.
Guillermina Gonzalez, Marta Isaias. Is Marta here? Okay. Holly Benson. Holly here? Holly's not here? Okay.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Guillermina González, soy residente de Boyle Heights por 17 años. ¿Nos surge?
Good afternoon, my name is Guillermina Gonzalez. I am a resident of Boyle Heights for 17 years. It urges.
Nos surge que apoyen este proyecto porque nuestro vecindario necesita vivienda accesible. ¿Ustedes saben la necesidad?
We really need for you to support this project because our neighborhood really needs affordable housing. You really know what is the necessity that we have.
He escuchado que dicen muchas personas vienen que no son del área, nosotros somos del área. Hemos esperado hasta este tiempo, todos tenemos hambre, queremos ir, pero también tenemos necesidad de vivienda.
You know, I heard that they say that there are people come from other areas to come to live in this project, but no, I'm here. You know, we're part of the community and we're really hungry and we really need this project to be done.
Todos tenemos derecho a una vivienda justa. Todos hemos visto las necesidades tan de cerca, de familiares, amigos o conocidos, y nosotros nos urge que apoyen este proyecto.
We have all seen this. We all need this accessible housing. We have seen directly through a friend or a family the necessity. So we really need you to support this project.
Yo tengo 17 años en esta área luchando por una vivienda justa. Mis hijos crecieron en un cuarto tan pequeño, siendo 5 de familia, y ellos ya son adultos y ni siquiera llegaron a ser beneficiarios de un proyecto de estos.
You know, I'm a 17 years resident on this area. You know, we and my children, we're 5 in a family. We all grew up in one room, and we were never benefited from this type of project. So we really urge you to support us.
Así que yo urjo para que otras personas y otras familias no pasen lo que yo pasé y lo que yo viví. Gracias.
So I urge you for this support because I don't want other families to suffer what I suffered. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Martha, okay, and hold on, Martha, un momento. Ruth Schwartz, are you here? Jacqueline Wagoner? Daisy Miguel? Daisy here? Not here? Oh yeah, Daisy's here. And our last speaker is Alan Greenlee. Alan, are you here? Not here? Okay. Thank you. Welcome.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Marta Isaías. Soy residente del este de Los Ángeles y estoy aquí para apoyar el proyecto.
Good afternoon. My name is Marta Isaí. I am a resident of East Los Angeles, and I'm here to support this project.
Yo vivo en una vivienda económica y vivo bajo el régimen de familias para personas necesitadas y es
I live in an accessible, low-cost housing, and I use this method, and I know how this benefits people in this condition.
Yo pienso que todos tenemos la oportunidad de tener una mejor calidad de vida y las personas se sienten apoyadas y eso es un gran impacto emocional, personal, como que personas sentirse consideradas.
I know that this is something that helps very much because it helps from the emotional point of view, people that live in this situation. This helps you very much to build your esteem.
Estoy en cierta forma consciente de que ellos tienen miedo a un cambio. Creo que es normal, siempre es temor a un cambio, pero pienso que la mejor manera de crecer como comunidad no es siendo egoístas.
You know, I really think that they have they're really afraid of changes. But in this point of view, changes are beneficial. We don't have to be selfish. You know, we have to grow together like in a community.
Yo pienso que mejor aquí no hay que buscar lo que está bien o lo que está mal, sino buscar una solución que sea favorable para todos. Gracias.
I think that we should stop pointing out what is good, what is bad, and what we have to do is work for the betterment of the community. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ruth Schwartz.
Hi, my name is Ruth Schwartz. I'm the Executive Director of Shelter Partnership. We've been working 32 years in the city of LA on the issue of homelessness and trying to solve it. My understanding is that this is not a hearing on whether this project should go forward, which a lot of people have been speaking about, but whether or not the EIR appeal should be sustained. I believe, after listening to everything today, and it's kind of mind-boggling, I have to tell you, listening to the community, that this is, and to the opponent, that this appeal is blatantly discriminatory appeal against people who are homeless, including the brave men and women who've served our country. I want to remind the council that a preceding event to actually taking measure HH on was you looked at what it cost us for police services in the city. And you said, we're spending money that isn't going anywhere. And you said, we need to do something about this project, about this issue, and invest appropriately. Thank you.
Jacqueline Wagoner.
Well, good evening. My name is Jacqueline Wagner with Enterprise Community Partners, and I want to say that Los Angeles always says it prides itself on being the city of angels, and we want an equitable and inclusive city. That includes the people that are sleeping on our streets that need housing and services. We passed Measure H, we passed Proposition Triple H, and we need somewhere to build, and we need to build this type of housing across the city. And I think it's important that groups like a community of friends that have the know-how, the track record, and experience be supported in their efforts to build housing, to build for our most vulnerable people. They don't want to sleep on the streets. They don't have options. And we're going to have more people on the streets if we don't house these people urgently. Thank you.
Last speaker, Daisy Miguel.
Good evening.
My name is Daisy Miguel, and I'm here on behalf of LA Family Housing. We are an affordable housing developer based out of the San Fernando Valley, and we are here to strongly support the development of Lorena Plaza. As many of my colleagues have mentioned, it's a critical time for the city of Los Angeles. We're in the middle of a huge homeless housing crisis that must be addressed, and we're all responsible to responding to it. A community of friends has a strong record of building permanent supportive housing, and this project is a piece of the solution to our homeless crisis. As someone who's worked for a community of friends, I know firsthand the care and attention that Dora Leon Gallo and her staff take to review all developments. I have seen how permanent supportive housing transforms lives. It's the reason I work in the field that I do, and it's the reason why I continue the work that I do.
Thank you very much. Okay, let me start off by thanking the department for completing the review on this. What's before us is 10 arguments against the MND. Some of the arguments are unrelated to CEQA, while others are, and I wanted to focus on the CEQA matters. If the department could come up, please, so I could ask you a few questions about that. So the MND indicates an abandoned well exists on the site. Is that correct?
Shauna Bonston with the Planning Department. Pardon me while I fill in for Blake Lamb just momentarily. I believe so.
Okay. And what kind of well was it? Is it an oil well, a natural gas well? I don't want to hear from the applicant. I want to hear from our department.
It's an oil well.
It's an oil well. What year was the well found? Do we know that? We don't know that.
I apologize. I don't know these details.
Okay. Does it?
Councilman, this is Lisa Weber. We do have the environmental consultant that worked with the Department of City Planning to prepare the CEQA analysis. That's the individual who is standing up.
Mm-hmm.
And our document is supported by the technical analysis that they prepared. Perhaps they could step in.
That's the applicant's consultant, and I assume our department did our own review, correct?
Well, the consultants that prepare CEQA work, that material is provided to the Department of City Planning.
Mm-hmm.
We work closely with them. We're the lead agency, so any CEQA documents produced
by
the
Got it. And that's where we're changing that. We're changing that to now have a bench, because as you sit in this room and you see the consultant sitting with the applicant, don't tell me there's no bias or some type of relationship in wanting this project to go through. That's exactly why we're changing who prepares our CEQA documents to have a more objective analysis. I would feel it highly unfair if I asked the consultant that's getting paid by the applicant to come up here and answer my questions when I want an objective response from our planning department. So let me ask this. From what the planning department knows, has there been any actual soils test conducted by the applicant? Do we know that?
I can look at the documents.
Yeah. Okay, I wanted to just have this verified. In fact, I reviewed the documents. There have not been any actual soils tests conducted by the applicant. And my other question was, is it possible that there are contaminated soil cuttings deposited in this site? And it is possible because there was an oil well there, but we don't know if the soil is contaminated or not and to what extent. Now, I do understand that without an actual soils test, there's no way to be certain if this is true or not. And I do understand as well that in the past, the way we dealt with contaminated soil, such as the one that may be here through an oil well, is that they just buried the contaminated soil. I mean, I know this from looking at hundreds of sites where we were attempting to build schools, and that we did not do the proper environmental review at that time. You're going to say something?
Yes, I in locating some information here, so there was documented soil contamination on the project site, and the mitigation measures were feasible to address the impact. Anderson Environmental concluded that although the potential for limited soil impacts from the drilling of the abandoned well, and these are indeed oil wells, meets the standard for the recognized environmental condition as defined by the American Society for Testing and Materials.
Did they, I just quick follow up on that since you're on it, I'm sorry to interrupt. Did they do an actual phase 2 post cleanup?
This letter clarifies that a phase 2 investigation was recommended to provide the information to the owner for construction management purposes. And then let me look further to see if phase 2 was conducted.
I don't think one was. I've read the record, but there was one that was recommended.
Well, I thought it was fascinating that's actually recommended. And,
Yeah.
Interesting to find out if they actually did it.
Okay. Any other questions on this? No? Mr. Englander? Yeah.
That's why you're looking at that. It doesn't appear that they did a phase 2 post cleanup.
In looking at the information, I agree.
Yeah, that's a serious concern. I just wanted to address, I know a lot of people, we took our time certainly listening. A lot of people took even more time coming down here and on both sides. And I appreciate that. We're in a very difficult position right now because the position is that, and this isn't, I know this is an appeal on MND versus a fully IR and CEQA, but I'm going to digress from that for one moment since most of you did. So we're challenged because the biggest moral dilemma we have, the biggest issue we have in our lifetime is the issue of people living on our streets, in our communities, throughout Los Angeles, under bridges and overpasses, in bushes, families, men, women, children, veterans, as it was said. And it's a challenge we all live with and have to deal with every day, one person at a time. One of the many solutions on that is housing. There's no question. We need housing of all types, market rate, entry level, affordable housing, transitional housing, permanent supportive housing. But with that, too, it's not at all cost. And with that, it means that we've also got to have good operators. I take concern that some members that came up today said that the crime issues that LAPD came up here to talk about weren't verified. They were by LAPD, who just came and testified that there's an issue at some of the other locations. I also take issue with this operator, and I want to go on record on that. I appreciate some of the lives that have been turned around and some of the ones that came to speak. That the community friends made a big difference and an impact in their lives. That's huge. But I also have concern with the history that I've had with them. And I'm now dealing with the cleanup of promises that were made by community friends. In fact, Dora, who's here today, made those very promises to me that we wouldn't have those issues with New Directions and community of friends, and we're living with them today. I had a meeting just last week with LAPD because of a project that they built in my district where we have so many calls for service. Last week, one of their residents walked out and did an attempt rape on a senior 90 years old in her home. It was on the news because we released it because we knew it was more than one incident. Now, I know it's not related, but it's a discussion we got to have because we need housing and we need operators, but not at all cost. So location is an issue. Having a clean site is critically important, the most important. But having reputable operators are important as well. So I'm not going out there on record to go off on a rant, but only my history. And I'm sure there are a lot of great stories out there. I have no doubt. We heard many of them today, and I'm grateful to hear that. But from what we've heard also on the other side of some of the nightmares. And I just wanted to go out there and say that that's been my experience. And so if this project were to move forward at all, not only would I want personally to make sure that the people that would move in there would be safe, the ground would be safe, full environmental would have to be done. The impacts to the community from what you shared from traffic and the other concerns and crime and a traffic, not just a traffic plan or whatever would need to be done from those findings and studies, but a community safety plan because of what we've heard from LAPD and what I've experienced directly with these organizations. And there are so many great operators out there But my experience is that this is just one, just from me talking, this has not been one of them. I wish we can bake a public safety study as well as a public safety plan into an environmental document, but that's just not part of that study. So if this ever does come back in that form or fashion, I don't know where my colleagues are at on that. That's something that's going to have to be addressed for me. So I appreciate you all being here as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Englander. And on the environmental front, as the council member who represents Boyle Heights, I am extremely sensitive to the way environmental factors impact the community's health and quality of life. It is a community that historically has been burdened by the ill effects of heavy industry, contamination, and pollution. And in my tenure on the City Council, I fought hard to ensure that my constituents fight back against that neglect that has happened in this community for a long time. In 2011, we introduced a motion and last year adopted our Clean Up, Green Up initiative, which addresses overconcentration of industrial pollution in toxic hotspots like Boyle Heights, Wilmington, and Pacoima. And last year, we organized with state legislators, community members to fight back against Exide, who has been polluting our community for decades after DTSC failed to perform its low-level job to protect us against that pollution. And earlier this year, we introduced a motion calling for a report on the city's current practices to protect public health from air pollution near freeways. And so we in Boyle Heights are very sensitive to issues of environmental contamination and impacts. But I do want to say that I feel compelled to denounce any attack, including written statements and public testimony identifying the special needs populations as being problematic. That kind of language is inappropriate and has no bearing whatsoever on the determination of this committee. I am keenly aware of the struggle of homelessness and have fought hard to bring about citywide funding for permanent supportive housing. And I've asked departments to look at sites throughout my district. In fact, there are 2 other metro sites in Boyle Heights, which I have asked the city and the county to provide more permanent supportive housing on those sites. There are 2 city-owned sites alone that have asked for more affordable housing, the lowest level to be built upon those sites in Boyle Heights, in close proximity to this site. And let me be perfectly clear, while other areas of the city have fought back affordable housing and this type of housing, I have fought alongside many of you in this room to bring these types of projects to Boyle Heights in the thousands. I would challenge any other neighborhood in this city that has built more affordable housing in any one location like this. It's Boyle Heights. We've built a lot there, and we will continue to fight to get more there. It's not about NIMBYism. What's before us today is environmental review. And let me tell you, this environmental review, which was, let's just skip over phase 2 environmental assessment, whether we can determine for sure or not that the soil is contaminated, is another example of how this project was forced through the Metro Board, neglected to tell me, the local council member who is responsive to these constituents, any changes in plans, and still forced it through the Metro Board. And I must say, and I rarely use this language, lied to the community about what was being proposed. This is yet another example of how this project has attempted to circumvent the process and the rules. And so what's before us today is the environmental review, and it was recommended to have a phase 2 review, which was not done. We need to give the people in this community some sense that, in fact, the soil is not contaminated and that it is safe to build upon that location. So I would recommend that we move to grant the appeal in part with regard to CEQA and overturn the determination of the Director of Planning in adopting the MND, and move to grant the appeal in part with regard to CEQA and overturn the determination of the Director of Planning in adopting the MND and MMP as the environmental clearance for this project. we are granting the appeal.
What's the impart part?
Pardon me?
The impart part.
In part.
Yeah, what's that? What is, are you granting it in its entirety or are you
In
said
its
in part?
entirety. Yes. Seconded by Mr. Englander. Any objections? Seeing none, so ordered. Thank you. We have public comment remaining. Thank you, sir. Dr. Tom Williams. Damian Goodman. Herman. Not here. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.